also don't see much vegetation coming up, but we're just in April now. It'll start to green out within a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. Item B, Camp Wani.
Yes. Item B, Camp Wani in the Berkshires. I received a phone call from the owner, Mr. Stricker, earlier today. Essentially, and I do apologize for not getting my comments out to you before the meeting, but I left them there for you. You can see the pictures that we saw at Camp Wani that made us think that this should probably be stopped. It appears that there has been large piles of sand mounded. It'll be on the back of the first page, I believe. There's been large piles of sand mounded on the beach. Now, this looks to me to be some sort of sand deposition in order to, sand has been brought in order to make the beach nicer to walk on. When I spoke with Mr. Stricker today, he adamantly denied this and stated that that this is a standard maintenance practice at Camp Wani. I believe his words were that they rake it into piles to gather all of the leaves and other winter debris, remove it, and then spread it back out, was what he said. But that seems unusual to me. You can still see the rivuleting of water that has occurred across the beach in certain areas. It seems unusual that if you were to rake sand into piles, that the rivulets, the little gulches that formed on the sand along the beach would still be there. So it's, since we didn't get video of someone actually dumping sand there, it's just there are suspicious piles of sand that we suspect have been dumped right by the water, dumping sand by the water of any pond. This is Park Pond. It's adding fill within the wetlands area. So we've stopped him, and I wanted to come to the commission and ask, what should we do? Do we request an application from the property owner to add sand along the beach? If he continues to insist that it's not, there would need to be some way for him to prove that. But I don't know how he's going to be able to do that. This is a property that there have been issues with before. There has been an issue with the septic system, which is in the upland review area. We have images of a new structure that's gone up without any sort of building permits or zoning permits. There's a lot of enforcement that's going to be happening at this property. But with regards to the water, what is the commission's pleasure? What should we request of this owner?
Just for purposes of clarity of the picture, I see like a set of bleachers adjacent or behind the sand.
Yes.
Then I see sand, then I see a puddle, and I see, is that a dock going out into the water?
That is a dock going out into the water.
Okay, so the water is between the dock and the sand?
Yes.
Is there a culvert behind the bleachers? What's that round thing
Looks
back
like
there?
something back there. Rocks, anyway.
It's a rocket.
Oh, that's okay. Thinking if that's a pipe coming in there, then that's,
Pam, do you have any familiarity with what,
Tracks.
any practice in previous years regarding this sand issue?
No, but reports from neighbors are that sand is trucked in each and every year.
Yes. So then why don't we take the path of not the least resistance and let them spread it?
No, just that.
He's trucking in sand.
Yes, and it was a complaint from neighbors that why is he allowed to do this? That,
He's not,
right.
unless he puts a permit in. So then meet with him again and insist that he file a permit and not do anything until, we rule on it.
Okay, I will.
Anybody else with any other sentiments?
well, puts the application, we're gonna deny it, right?
Let's see what he says.
Put sand in there.
Let's see what he says. If he's putting sand on the shore,
Okay.
Well, it's a lease.
What-
Well, is it a beach or is it?
This is a beach. Now, the question of beaches has always been a complicated one in terms of the lakes in Winchester. Highland Lake, generally speaking, you can't create beachfront, you can't add sand to the lake. Park Pond is a naturally occurring water body. It doesn't really have sand, beach quality sand around in most parts. It's one of those lakes where you'll have big, tall pine trees come right up to the edge. You're familiar with them. They're similar to most of our lakes around here. So it's possible that this was a created beach at some point in the past, but Camp Wani's been there for a lot of years. So the initial creation of the beach may have occurred as a part of the initial camp construction. Regardless, It doesn't seem like it was ever approved based on any of our files. And the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Act has been pretty consistent since 1978 about putting fill in or immediately next to wetlands. So, in regards to that at least, there's consistency.
Well, his choice would either be remove it, or put it in a permit and let us rule on it.
What types of requirements would the commission consider when it comes to putting sand directly along a waterfront? If you're putting sand directly along a waterfront, any sort of wave action that occurs as a result of wind or boat has the potential to drag that sand into the water, which causes eutrophication. You fill up the lake. It's not good for long-term water body health. So if people are adding sand to any lake in town or right on the edge on a beach, how can the commission, what would the commission look for in terms of an engineered site plan, some way to prevent sand from going out? What would be,
That's an impossibility, preventing sand from going out.
in general,
The commission, over the years, have allowed a small number of homeowners to create some kind of a, I'm gonna use the term very loosely, a beach in reality, but it's not. But some access for kids to walk into the water gradually. There has never been, I think, a request to backfill with sand, but there has been the term used loosely to describe that kind of an event.
they've often been approved as waiting areas.
Waiting
There's
areas.
a couple on Mr. Pago.
So why don't we see what
656.
he wants and what he puts in for, and then, you know, or let him remove it and go from there.
Okay, I will
Right,
convey
Jeff,
that
I think I
information.
I think the thing should be addressed right off the bat, just some silt fence as far as where it's really
Good
washing
point.
out.
Could you see it
Okay.
washed into the lake over the, what looks like the retainer wall there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beach, right? You look in the water and there's sand, and it's
Okay.
contiguous with the other sand. If you look at aerial photography, you can see that the water gets deeper as it goes away from the beach. So it looks like there's a gradual sand slope, which
Could
is
there be a
unusual
maintenance
for...
program that he could put into when it washed
Let's
in?
not get into the application if there is none.
Right.
Let's
So we'll
stabilize
ask an
the
application,
waterfront.
put silt fence along the piles,
And
and
then
put in
Tony's
an
gotta,
application.
Meet with you for a resolution, either an application or a removal.
Okay, I will convey that information
else?
and send
Good.
it in a letter.
Good.
Are we asking the impossible? I mean, there's no sense in wasting our time if we really can't. I mean, what would we like him to do?
Are you okay with a beach that is existing, that may never have been permitted, and if it came before you today, would have never been allowed, with continuing to exist? And are you separately okay with an individual bringing in fill material and adding sand to that beachfront to keep it in the state that they want it for human enjoyment and recreation?
What do
The
we-
first can be, I didn't mean to cut you off,
No, that's
please.
all right.
The first is a little bit different from the second, because saying we're not gonna touch something that's there, but you definitely can't keep adding to it, is,
I have an opinion. I believe it was there. I tell you, my situation was, when I put mine in, the old agent said to put in the fill that was in the lake, whatever possible. And when that ran out, use the closest material that you could find. And that's what we did. And it erodes.
Right.
So, you know, I'm not putting any more in, but it's eroding. So I'm thinking, is there a maintenance program we can do? That he takes the sand that's in there and puts it back in the beach? That's what I personally would like to do.
well,
You can't put
you
in
know.
the equipment to get the sand out
I
of,
understand.
unless the.
there would have to be an application to have
Yeah.
a machine that is used to, and I don't know, I don't mean to throw you under the bus here, Mr.
Right.
Paganelli, but when your property at 856 had a similar area put in, I believe the wording used on your application was that you would rake the bottom of the lake up to be smooth
Correct.
using the same substrate there. How was that
We
accomplished?
took the stones out, we screened the stones.
screened the stones and just physically.
Picked it up, it was a bank, so when we dug the bank out, we ran it through a screen, and that's how we.
And you smoothed it out with a tamper, with
No, just raked it out.
Is it washing out
hand
there?
tools?
What do we
Is it
do
washing
at
out?
Highland Lake?
Only when the big
Well,
boats go by,
at
you'll
the
end up
beach.
with a little bit of a
So
wash.
do you move it back in the fall?
I have
Well,
no
that's-
idea
that's
what the
what
maintenance
it
of
is.
Holland Beach and Risha Beach is. I can find out. I don't. I'll look.
Well, I can tell you that Holland Beach used to be twice as wide, if not 3 times as wide as it is now. And it's just washed out. It's just,
It reached the beach, the geese fill it in.
replenish it.
What is the overall health of this pond? I mean, is all this sand that's obviously gonna keep flowing and putting a big impact, is it, causing a big impact? I mean, that would be
So
something.
Park Pond, compared to Highland Lake, Park Pond's really not developed. It's much smaller, but Park Pond is over down in the southwest corner of town, over by Wani Road with Camp Wani. Compared to the town center, that area is not very developed at all. Camp Wani is probably the biggest contributor of any sort of a runoff into there, but I don't know that we have any environmental studies. I don't drive around it a lot because there aren't a lot of good access roads where you can see. If you go up Blue Street, though, it looks pretty pristine and kind of idyllic in the same way when you drive around a reservoir or Rugbrook. You'll find something like that. I don't think it's under a lot of stress, but if there is a source of stress, it's probably this beach. So
A lot of this runoff, looking at your picture, is that some of it will be protected on the backside, which Jeff noted some kind of a swale back there. So it would have to be direct rain right on the sand itself rather than, like coming down the hill, so to
I think a
speak.
lot of what happened with snow melt. As the snow melted, it pulled the sand away because I'm seeing a lot of this, but it's April and we're getting the first warm days in a while. We're getting a lot of erosion everywhere in town. There will be more things to talk about next month.
I think you have enough direction to meet with them and give them the sentiment of this committee and how it would stabilize the environment to begin with, and then make a determination and inform you as to how they're gonna proceed.
Okay, we can go
Okay.
from there.
Yeah, good.
Okay, good, thank you. The next order of business after Camp Wani would be Sandy Drive 3 LLC at 240 Perch Rock Trail. Install a patio without wetlands approval, installation of a patio without wetlands approval.
Is there anyone from 240 Perch Rock Trail here? Okay, so last month, Mr. Diadio was back, but his application, I believe, was back before you last month, concerning the sidewalk or forward-facing base of his retaining wall. When that was approved by the commission, that was pretty much the last thing holding the property up from getting a certificate of occupancy, which I then put my signature to for Wetlands and Zoning. I believe that the building official finished signing off on that, and then about a week later, I get a call that there's more activity occurring at the property, that a large number of materials have been dropped off, and that it looks like they've been moved behind the house. So I walked behind the house, and it seems that a patio that was never on any of the old plans is looking to be installed within 25 feet of the waterfront. I'm a little bit exasperated by this one because Mr. Giadio was just back before the commission for something else, and it could have just been on the plan if you wanted it. As long as you're more than 20 feet from the water, which it looks like this is pretty close, you're allowed to have a patio. And it looks like some of these materials may be impervious pavers, so it wouldn't necessarily increase his impervious surface coverage. But he didn't do that. I'm feeling a little put out that I signed the CO and then he immediately turned around and did something else. It's not allowed. It's digging within the wetlands area. So no one from Sandy Drive 3 is here today.
You made him aware of your visit.
You want to confirm that the receipt of the cease and desist order was confirmed?
I believe that
It was confirmed because I checked the tracking number through USPS.
You did check. It was received on April 16th.
Whatever.
But it was a couple days. I received no phone call. I always say, please contact me within 5 days of receipt. I received nothing. That was 4 days ago. But
Okay,
All right.
that's in place, right?
it,
The cease and desist
it's
is
not
in place.
actively eroding, but he's been notified.
Okay.
If we don't get anything by next month, I can send him a citation.
Well, if he doesn't do anything, he hasn't done anything wrong, right? If he doesn't install those pavers.
Well, he's already ripped up the grass.
Oh, he has, okay.
Well, yeah, along that whole area. That didn't used to be that bare earth. It's down about an inch. Looks like he's going to set the stone, but I haven't been back.
If they're gonna be impervious, then they go down, what, 18 inches, Gary?
You know, if you want pervious, you have to have something underneath to collect the water.
Yeah, it's gonna be more than an inch.
It looks like there's a mix of what look like bluestone tiles, which may be going underneath the existing part of the deck that's open to the house. Right, it looks like there's a table under there. There's bluestone there, and there's also what looks like a bunch of what could be pervious bricks. With the way that they're looking, it's similar to a lot of the ones that have been installed around town. So I'm not sure. I haven't been back in about a week, but it's clearly wrong as it is. If he stops now and just comes in and applies, it could be made fine.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
let's hope he does it.
I'll reach back out. He knows.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. The last thing is under cease and show cause is D. Jervis, 182 Shore Drive.
Yes, and this was the Ferrarotis. So I provided to the commission in my comments there both an aerial image of the site before in 2019, which was mostly pine. It was a winter shop. You can see it was a large pine area. The lot's about 2 acres. It is slightly adjusted over. It should be the third picture, I believe, the third set of pictures there. Also what appears to be the clearing that's happened today. I sent this letter by a marshal because I wanted to get Mr. Ferrarati here. So if you would like to speak for yourself, sir.
Well, what started this in the last 6, 7 years?
Just before you begin, just for the record, introduce yourself and tell us
Gary Ferrari, 165 West Road.
the homeowner.
Yes.
Okay.
I've owned the property since 1979. And at this area, we never developed it. And what has happened over the last 6, 7 years, these pines had matured out. I mean, they were really big. And some had died and cracked and were hung up in other trees. And some could reach my house. And some could reach the power lines on the road and actually fall into the road. So I thought it was best, if I had a chance to deal with them at this point, that at one time there, that was actually a meadow or something. There was an old 2 or 3 little remnants of some apple trees that were in there. And the stone wall obviously was from somebody building it. And there's a barbed wire fence on the other part of my property. And it was very smooth in there. It was actually a portion before we even removed the trees up toward the back part of my property that was quite clear there. There wasn't any trees in that. So anyway, long story short, I decided to take these down for the safety of my house and neighbors and the general public before they became a nuisance. And I was unaware that I required a permit to do that, and I apologize for the ignorance of that. My intentions now is just to put a little dwarf apple orchard with peaches and some pears and some blueberries in there and reseed it down so I can maintain it by mowing it occasionally. And that's it.
Have you taken down all of the trees you intend to take down?
Pretty much, with except a few little saplings here or there that are just gonna die out.
So basically, that phase of,
That's finished. I'm
That
done.
part is finished.
All I
Now-
wanna do
okay.
is clean it up, get it, finish graded, get all of, we can't do anything right now, it's wet. But, I have some piles of brush that need to be burned. I talked to Peter Marchand about burning them, and he said when the time was right, he would let me know when I can burn them. And then, I don't think I'll plant the apple trees this year there, but I was gonna throw just some annual rye on that for a cover crop, just to keep it from eroding. I will grade it when I can get on it to do it. And when I say grade it, I mean just pick the small rocks out, whatever debris is left. And that's basically it. And
Is there potential of erosion now?
So Mr. Ferrarati put up Silt fence, since we talked to him, I drove out today and got pictures. Silt fence is pretty much up along the entirety of West Road.
Okay.
So there's not immediate concern of that. And the stumps are still in the ground for the most part, as far as I understand. So that at least is, the soil's not gonna move immediately. With regards to, what is permitted, it's when you have over a half acre of clearing, for any development, the Wetlands Commission has to review a soil and erosion control plan, and then has to grant an application that says that this will comply with the state soil and erosion controls, and that the permitted use is not going to negatively impact wetlands. It's going to deal with erosion. It's the weird thing where it's a zoning regulation that you guys deal with, but that's what we have to do if there's going to be anything except for just full revegetation of the site. This sounds like it's going to be a farming use. And so if there was just going to be, grow back conservation seed mix and plant a bunch of immature pine trees, then the site goes back to normal, or at least how it was before. This sounds like a lovely little farm glade, but if it's going to be used for farming, then it's a change in use, it's development, and it should have a full application, at least by the way the regs read. I see.
Are
Yeah.
you planning on pulling the stumps?
Pardon me?
Are you planning on pulling the
The
stumps?
stumps are already gone.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some we had to leave. I didn't want to damage any of the oak trees that were there or anything like that. The only hardwoods that were ever taken down were already damaged from being struck by the other trees. Like I said, it's quite obvious there was I don't even call it a foundation, but at one time across the street, there's some old foundations. There was a farm in that area. There's another spot on my property. There's a very large mound of stones on this very large rock. For whatever reason they did it, I have no clue.
So
But-
it sounds like all he needs is a permit to do it. He's got the erosion control already in place.
I mean, I'm not trying to make a commercial orchard or anything like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
When I
this is
say
just a
orchard,
private
I'm
piece of
talking-
property,
Yeah.
it's not a farm.
No.
Right.
So-
And he's
It's
gonna
nothing
replant.
It's enhancing his property.
Right, he's
It's
gonna
a half
replant,
acre.
he's gonna stabilize,
Right.
it's stabilized with the silt fence that there is now. Does he need an actual permit from Pam to clear the half acre?
Yes. So that's the thing, is you have to have a wetlands application if you're gonna clear a half acre for anything other than putting up a new house, at which point you're gonna be going through planning and zoning anyway. Yes.
What constitutes clearing?
Okay, so clearing
Was it-
is.
It's more than half or less than half or
Yep,
something?
so clearing is if more than half of the trees of 6 inches in diameter at breast height have been removed from an acre of 1/2 acre or larger. This appears to be more than half an acre, and it's a total clear. So it does require a permit.
Should we make it an agent approval?
You can, after an application.
From my position, I think, he's like Gary said, he's enhancing his property, he cleared it out, he has dead trees, putting it back to the way it was in 1975 when he bought it, or close to it, and it's an improvement to the property, he's got the silt fence up. That's,
Did you work
The
with the
way-
forester or anybody? Or who,
Pardon me?
did you work with the forester or
No,
anybody?
no.
So in terms of that, it could be an agent approval. You'd have to receive the application. It would have to be complete. It would need an updated survey. Mr. Ferrari indicated to me that he had a survey of the property.
Well, when I
Um,
purchased the property, I had a survey map. I couldn't lay my hands on it for this evening, but I'm sure it's in the town records. So.
Contacting the surveyor who did that, who may very well still be in business, and just having them update it with the current clear conditions and bringing it in with an application would be the way to proceed. I would forewarn you, this is wetlands. If you're gonna do any changes in grades, it elicits some things that have to happen with planning and zoning, so I know you said you were thinking of grading. Anything
I
other than
see
just
grading.
taking out rocks that are on the lot, if you're gonna change your slopes at all, that would have to be other degrees, so I just wanna forewarn you about that.
I'm talking just working the first 8 or 9 inches of dirt that's been disturbed, to just pick the rocks out, doesn't smash the lawnmower to pieces. I'm not talking, the slope is, you can stand there and look at it from where the trees exist on this end to the other end.
Pretty level.
It just said general slope, 12 degrees, 15 degrees, whatever you wanna call it, but it's not,
so
I didn't fill anything in,
For any of the remainder work, is heavy equipment in terms of a bulldozer, excavator going to be required?
well, I'm gonna use my skid steer in there, I'm a landscaper, so, that's what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go with a skeleton bucket, pluck the larger rocks, and put a Harley power rake on the front of the machine and just finish grade it.
During the rainstorm, we had heavy rain, nothing happened?
No,
That was
I didn't see
unfortunate
any sort
for
of-
being in the area I'm at, the ground there, at one time, the original part of my property, there was actually a gravel dig up from who knows when, maybe when he built the lake, I don't know. And the ground there, fortunately, until you get to the back part of my property line, is very sandy gravelly.
Absorbs it right up.
Which is unusual, because in Winchester Center, you dig 18 inches, you strike water. But in this particular area, it's excellent. I mean, all the rain I had, there's been absolutely no disturbance. I have a stone wall with an area of leaves, at least from you gentlemen over here, that has caught whatever little bit of runoff there was, and there's no trace of it kind of going through the wall down the other side.
Michael, are you comfortable with an agent determination?
I think what should happen is the application should be completed, presented before you, and then when you've seen it, you would refer it to me if you're happy with it, once it's in.
Okay, so you'll meet with Michael or Pam,
Okay.
fill out an application.
Sure.
They'll tell you what detail we would like to be included in the application.
Okay.
And next month, you'll come before us, and if we feel comfortable with what you provided us, and we believe that Michael can rule on it, then we'll just let him make a decision and move forward.
Okay.
All right? Anybody else?
No.
Sounds
Good?
good.
Trying to
Okay,
make it
thanks for
easy.
coming, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night. Michael, what else do we have on the show course?
That is all of them,
Okay, thank you.
so far.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move straight into the public hearing. For the record, the applicant is Paul Marino, the address is 680 East Wakefield Boulevard, and he's proposing to remove existing accessory building, addition to existing home with garage and a bonus room, realign driveway utilizing permeable pavers, remove and rebuild retaining walls, and entrance walk and stairs. For the record, introduce yourselves, please.
I'm Paul Marino, 680 East Wakefield Boulevard, Winston, Connecticut.
And I'm Laura Rich, 678 East Wakefield Boulevard, Winston, Connecticut.
Thank you. Just for clarity, before we begin, Pam, have all of the notices gone out and the publications in the paper and all of the dots and?
Yep.
That's all been done?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, Paul, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so there have been a few revisions from the plan since you saw it last. And we met with Director of Public Works, Jim Rollins, came out and looked at that area, specifically here next to where Lake Drive and Wakefield come together, where, if you recall, we were putting in this berm. And at his recommendation, we raised the west side of this berm from an elevation of 906.2 to 908. It was his feeling that we would direct more water coming from here down past the driveway into the catch basin. What we have going on is, unfortunately, everything from here on East Wakefield Boulevard is sloped upwards for about 200 yards. There are no catch basins between that slope and where it intersects with Lake Drive, and we get a river that comes down East Wakefield every time it rains. And then, of course, it hits where Lake Drive intersects, and if you look at, for example, I gave you a new packet of pictures as well. So the picture that is got number, number 5 would be a good one to see. I'm standing on Wakefield, you can see where the snow pile is. And these are all the big pictures. I sent you a big packet, updated packet, everybody would have gotten. So much stuff here. Yes,
This picture?
that's the, no, it says number 5 on the very top of the photo, there's little numbers on the top.
Yeah, that's number 5.
And you can see where that snow pile is where Lake Drive and Wakefield intersect, and that's where the water essentially comes down and creates runoff to both myself and the neighbor immediately to our west. So Jim came out and took a look at, because you had some questions when I met with the board last month about how are we handling that berm, and it was his suggestion that we originally were gonna be at 908 only in the center, and then this berm was gonna be at 906.2, so it was gonna be close to 2 feet lower. And Jim's suggestion was to bring it up to the 908, and he believes we'll catch water and run it really right down to the catch basin. Photo number 6 shows the location of that catch basin in front of the property next to me on the east.
So your intent with Jim's suggestion is to divert the water away from Lake Drive?
Yeah,
Let
we're
it
gonna,
let it bypass Lake Drive and go down to the catch basin north of you?
correct, we're gonna have this berm plus a new apron on the driveway that'll catch a good portion of this water. I mean, it's impossible to stop all of the water that comes off the road. The true fix, you know, when they do drainage on the lake, is catch basins on that 200 yards of hill that dumps all the water down. I mean, I can only do so much to prevent that water from coming down, and we're doing everything I think we can. But I know that was a concern when we were here last month, and I have met with the neighbor. Would you just hold that for a second? I have met with the neighbor, and I think, I don't know if everybody got a copy, but he did send an email to, did y'all have a copy
Yeah,
from Wayne Warren?
But he's your neighbor on the lake side.
He is the neighbor directly on the west side
Yeah.
where this runoff would affect. And he and I have walked this together after Jim's recommendation, explained to him exactly what we're doing. He thinks it's actually gonna help both of us quite a bit. So he's, as you can see by his email, he's in favor of that plan. So that was one of the revisions that we made, and I know that was a concern when we were here last month. Our second revision on the.
Can you
I'm
stay
sorry.
with that for a minute?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this, I think it's photo number 6,
Yes,
okay?
It's fine.
My concern is that diverting the water down toward that catch basin, where the arrow is, I assume? I'm concerned with a heavy rain that it might overflow and run down that hill into your neighbor's garage.
so there's a lip.
I see the lip, but it's really not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of water we're gonna divert, I mean, I think we're gonna catch a lot of it that's currently coming down our property. Like the rains of this week, we have ruts in the yard from the water running off Lake Drive, heading down towards the lake, that it's digging a hole going down there. We're gonna stop a lot of that. I mean, again, this problem really needs to be corrected with road drainage. It's not something that I can solve completely. We're trying to solve the runoff that's coming in and flooding Wayne's property and my property from the road. And this is, again, it's all road runoff.
Yeah, but we don't wanna move the water from Wayne's property and your property to the other guy's property either.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lip is big enough, and this was Jim's opinion as well.
Okay.
Jim's opinion was that the lip was large enough that we shouldn't cause any problem. And I've met with that neighbor. She's not here tonight, but I did meet with her and reviewed this plan, and she had no objections to it. I know I don't have a letter from her, but
No, I take your word for it.
Yeah.
I just, something came to
Just
mind.
one house
that I
between
didn't
you
wanna
and the catch
repeat.
basin?
the only thing between us and the catch basin is that garage that you can see in the photo. And there's a cottage down by the water.
It's gotta be done, you know,
Right.
done according to the plan. You know, I mean, that's
Well, all right,
I'm not, the audio is not gonna pick up Mr.
critical
Paganelli.
elevation.
I'm sorry, my fault.
The catch basin, there's a garage with a cottage in front of it, and the catch basin is closer to the second, I don't think it's quite to the second house that's next, but it's probably between those two. And again, based on our engineer, as well as Jim Rollins, we've done, I think, the best that can be done with this situation.
Sounds like it's an improvement. It's gotta be an
Oh,
improvement.
it's a
You
huge
don't go
improvement.
backwards, it
I
sounds
mean, if you
like.
saw the water that comes off of Wakefield and Lake onto our
It's got that
property,
whole mountain that comes
we,
down to
we
it.
have a river that runs in those heavy rains, and you're welcome to go out and visit. There's ruts in there just from last week. Matt, I think you visited this week.
I was out, yeah, so when I was looking, because we were talking about the removal of that concrete curve at the southern edge of the property, not that concrete curve, that like stone curve, That's at the top of
Oh.
the,
That is some patio blocks I
Right.
put down to try to stop
stop
some
the water. So what that does right now is that takes the water, as opposed to just shooting straight down the green grass hill that's between, and this is the pictures that I attached, is instead of shooting the water straight down the hill, it diverts it into the
Picture 13
garden
will show you
right
what
next
he's
to it.
referring to.
Yeah, it diverts it into the garden, and then it gullies down through the garden, because the topography of Lake Drive is just a mess there. It's like 8 tiny little mogul hills. And it's confusing with what it's gonna do with the water, but yeah, any water that's gonna go to the south is gonna slip down that hill. Anything water that's gonna go to the north, I can't necessarily speak to, but if it does, if Director of Public Works Rollins thinks that it would go to the catch basin, that's good. I know that there's a lot of money hopefully going into drainage improvements at the lake soon. Certainly that doesn't impact the committee's decision-making on the merit of this application, but capturing water in a catch basin is what they're for. It's always just wise to be cautious when directing water away from a property.
Well, in my opinion, if it's improving the situation,
Yeah,
as long as it's not as long as it's not making it worse, then let the town fix the catch basins and go on.
so picture 8 shows the little patio blocks that you're speaking about, and they were set down, I mean, they're not cemented in or anything, they're just set there. They help a little bit, but still most of the water goes through that, and this section, really right here, is where we've got a lot of ruts from the last runoff. So I think we're gonna do a lot to stop that, and again, please, that bond goes through and they put the drainage in the road and we have a much better situation.
They're on the other side of the lake, pal.
Well, there's drainage plans, who knows? Yeah, but when I saw that, it's like, west, where's east?
It's a
But
step in the right direction.
It is. So,
Would you be adverse, you know, if as a result of your project, that water does ultimately climb over that little lip by those 2 garages, that some kind of, one of those, I don't know, with blacktop, I don't know what they call it,
it'd have to be a blacktop, well,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you'd have to do some.
Berm?
a berm of sorts, or,
Yeah, I mean, that would create them to have a larger climb into their driveway, and they would have to be, agreeable to that. I can't answer that for them. We can certainly speak to them. I also didn't give you this, but, did you get a copy of the letter from Jim? Because he sent the letter also on this topic.
unless it was on our desk, no.
We also were here on Monday night for the Board of Selectmen meeting because I had to get the driveway approved. So I'm gonna experience every meeting we have.
You know how this town operates.
I'm waiting. I think I'll go Selectmen next time. Thank you.
Just for record, it's a memorandum dated April 14th, 2022, to the Wetlands Commission from Jim Rollins, Director of Public Works, regarding 680 East Wakefield driveway.
Any questions on the part of the commission?
I have 2 other
Yeah,
revisions,
please,
but once we're done with that top part, I'll
Yeah.
show you a couple other revisions.
That's why I interrupted you while we were at it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul, thank you.
The second thing is, on the original drawing that we provided, there was on the west side of the new construction, there was to be a basement door that was requiring us to create a well because of the topography, and that was gonna have a drain also in it. We've eliminated that door and that well, so we'll just be grading that off and topsoiling and grassing it, so there'll be no requirement for any drainage or additional drain there. So that's been removed. since our last get-together. And then on page 2, I know that you had requested a maintenance schedule for the pervious pavers, and that is now reflected on page 2 of the site plan. So those are the revisions, I think, based on the last meeting that should answer some questions that you had.
Well, I have one question on your permeable paver with underdrain. Okay? The purpose of permeable paver is to retain the water, so go down into the ground, right? To have an underdrain directly under it, you're directing the water right out of it, almost instantly.
So, I do have Mike Sherman, the engineer, on standby. That's a question he'd have to answer for you. I believe that he felt that the water was gonna trickle through, and because of the amount of water coming from the road, he wanted to have, extra drainage there for anything that couldn't absorb.
But I think what happens in a case like that, in a lot of designs I've seen, the drain was up higher. So you still retain water in the stone, but once it got to a point where it couldn't take anymore, it would rise up to a drain that would drain out into a pipe.
So you're saying that this
Yeah.
drain should be raised higher in the
If you
design?
wanna use the permeable pavers and the detail as a reservoir, you can't drain it from the bottom.
Doesn't have time to sink
Doesn't have
into
time
it.
to soak down into the ground. The drain is fine because of the amount of water he figures is coming down. Maybe that should be looked at and brought up to a higher elevation, so you leave some water, so it'll percolate into the ground.
So are you referring to, when you say higher in the elevation, higher in this,
Just the pipe itself.
just the pipe itself?
The pipe itself, which is under the underground,
Yep,
which is under your, right there,
yep.
would be up higher. You might leave 5 inches or 6 inches of stone on the bottom before that drain.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just so it detains water, so it can percolate into the ground, rather than just running.
With your permission, I can get Mike on again if you like, or we can make that a condition of approval. I'm not sure.
I don't think it has to be a condition of approval. I think it just should be addressed.
Yeah,
When we actually do the construction.
I don't think it's something that's gotta be,
Okay.
In that case, it should be a condition of approval, because if it's not gonna be a modified plan, if it is the commission's pulse to approve tonight, then anything that is not on the plan or a condition of approval doesn't exist.
Right.
In terms of documentation, at least not before wetlands. So, noting the design of the permeable paver with underdrain be modified such that it takes into account allowing the permeable paver system to percolate, and using the drain as a overflow.
So you're suggesting raising it?
just raising the flow line of that drain.
Then that's the condition,
I'd like to
to
see
raise
what
the flow line.
like Sherman's
Yeah,
plan
before
was.
you fall-
Why he put it so low. When I first saw it, I thought, hey, that's a great idea, but then I thought about it a day or so later, the water's going right out before it has a chance to perk into the soil.
And we can do
So-
housekeeping too, because we have to, the hearing was advertised,
Yeah, maybe he has a place before it.
so this public hearing was advertised in the Republican American on April 6th and April 13th, notifying the public that there was a public hearing on 680 East Wakefield Boulevard to remove existing accessory building, addition to existing home with garage and bonus room, realign driveway utilizing permeable pavers, remove and rebuild retaining walls, entrance walk, and stairs. April 6th and April 13th it was published.
Now what about the notification to the neighbors with the
And
registered
the
mail?
certificate of mails have been provided for the record, serving as evidence that the copy of the notification of public hearing as well as of standard letter.
One second, Mike.
Letting them know that an application was available for public inspection at the planning office. Those certificates have been received.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, welcome. There's a question from the board regarding, I'm sorry for my back. There's a question from the board regarding the location of the drain pipe underneath the permeable pavers. Wondering what your thinking was there. One of the suggestions from the board was potentially raising that pipe so it allows the pavers to percolate. But I'll let you potentially answer that. And I know you wanted the microphone in, right?
Well, the purpose of the drain pipe underneath the permeable pavers is for very large storms. When the water gets so high, we have more than that inch of runoff, the water quality volume. So when we get 4 or 5, 6 inches, the water has some place to go. Otherwise, the water will just pond up on top of the patio and run off as surface water. So we keep getting this stuff filtered during the large storm events. That's the whole purpose it's there. I think what's going to infiltrate will, on that mild slope, because we have it at 2%, and the bottom will be at 2% too. By the time the water works down to that pipe, it'll have plenty of opportunity to infiltrate into the soils underneath.
Would it make more sense to put
Mike,
that,
can you hear him?
Put your mic, Mary, so, thank you.
would it make more sense to put that pipe up inside of that 3/4 inch stone with the holes up, which would give you 4 inches of water at all times, sitting at the bottom of your 3/4 inch stone so it'll percolate? It'll retain.
I suppose it would. Yeah, we could do that.
I think this just looks, it looks too much as just an instant drain. You know? And we know, and I understand as it comes across the gradient, it's gonna dissipate down into the ground, but I think the purpose of all of this is to retain some of that water so it percolates through. If you brought the pipe up into that 3/4 inch base with your holes up, not down, I think, I don't know, you look at it as an engineer and think of whether that would work or not. But that would retain 4 inches of water on the bottom of that, which would percolate into the
Well,
ground.
I'm not against that suggestion. It would still fulfill my purpose, is to get the water out of there during the large storm events.
No, we understand that also, yes, yeah. But we have to detain the water so that it will percolate. That's the purpose of your pavers, your permeable pavers.
If you want to make that a condition of approval, that would be fine with me.
All right, I guess we're on. We'll move forward.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Will I ask him to stay on, please?
Okay.
I'm referring, Mike, to last month's minutes, and I just want an explanation for clarity of my mind. Mike Sherman says, he explained that the driveway runs along that and noted that there was an existing catch basin at the bottom of the driveway.
Yes.
Which driveway are you referring to, Mike?
The existing driveway that we're ripping up.
Okay.
You look closely at the plan, midway on the east border, you can see it called out. It's in the green type.
I got the
It may be covered by proposed text.
57.
And you also indicate that there's you want to remove the catch basin down there.
Yes.
Is that the catch basin by the door or another whole different?
It's the catch basin that's right here at the top of these stairs.
Uh-huh.
It's right at the bottom of the driveway. It catches some water from the driveway. It goes into a pipe where it goes towards the lake into a second catch basin that's about 8 feet deep to catch any sediment, and then it runs off into the lake.
Would it be beneficial to leave that catch basin where it is?
No, because it would be up in the air.
there's not gonna be that,
Moving the wall that's right behind and moving that wall back towards the house.
this existing, and you can barely see it, but there's a retaining wall here. This existing retaining wall is coming out. There's gonna be a curved new retaining wall that's gonna have permeable paver walk that will go down steps to the new entry for the house. So that area where that current catch basin is gonna be gone.
Paul, where is that tank that you're talking about that's 8 feet deep?
That is actually right here.
Buried drainage structure.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to run that pipe from the driveway permeable pavers into that?
I think, Mike, is that permeable paver drain gonna go into that same pipe, right?
Yes, we're gonna utilize it.
Right. So whatever comes down from that pipe that we're raising up is gonna go into this pipe that will, again, into that catch basin.
And going back to the catch basin that I raised, is there any reason why it can't be lowered or moved so that it catches some water going down your hill? You know, the goal
Well,
is to
through
divert
grading,
everything
we've
to
directed the
somewhere
water in
else.
another direction.
Say that again, Mike?
Through grading, we have directed the water in another direction, and all that, the walk there, the driveway are all permeable pavers, so the water's, it's not flowing anywhere, it's just going straight down in through the pavers. There would just be no reason to have it there.
The catch basin that you're talking about right now is located roughly here. That whole area is gonna be gone, and there's gonna be steps coming down there that are all permeable pavers.
And your hope is to catch the water on the street.
Yeah, he's diverting, the grade diverts the water towards the west into this area where we can capture it in the paved or the permeable driveway, and then into that drain. So we're replacing that drain.
It seems like you're diverting the water away from the house on the street and then bringing it back around the house to the catch basin at the bottom.
Well,
That's, you know, my understanding.
we're kind of replacing the catch basin that you're talking about, or that drain that you asked about,
Right.
is being replaced by what's happening here and the
Right.
under drain.
And then what overflows there is going back.
What
right over-
overflows there is going into this pipe down here.
Right where the catch basin was.
It's gonna be connected to the old pipe where the catch basin was, right? But there's not gonna be any grade there unless it's in the middle of the steps, and there really wouldn't be much water on those steps to capture.
See, I'm trying to become comfortable with what's running off the street is running away from your property, and I'm concerned about your neighbor's properties. You know, that's, you know, what I'm concerned about. And I just need to be reassured that what Mike and Gary are suggesting and you're proposing really meets my needs, having it said that way, where as much or all of the water possible to capture is being captured and not pushed somewhere to somebody else's house.
You can ask Mike, because he would have taken the hydrology, that there's no net increase in runoff pre and post construction. Can you certify that, Mike?
Yes, well, what we have done was we reduced the amount of water flowing onto Paul's property by putting a proper driveway apron up there. And the grading that we do up on the road is the equivalent of having a curb in the road and nothing more. And that's why we had Jim Rollins come out and take a look at it. And he had some suggestions, and we tweaked the grading a little bit. And Jim's, whose phone's going to ring if anybody has any problems out there, he's good with what we decided to do. He thinks it'll work. We've got the other basin just to the east of our driveway that the road water will be directed towards. And as far as that catch basin is, there's just no need for it anymore. We directed the water in the driveway all towards the permeable pavers, and that will all get collected at that point, put into the pipe, and be underground by the time it gets to that point where that catch basin is in a pipe that's going to connect to the existing pipe that the catch basin connected to.
That one drain that you're asking about is at the bottom here of a complete asphalt driveway where the water had nowhere else to go. It's only this big, and whatever it captures off the driveway is not all the water by any stretch of the imagination. It helps a little bit But to Mike's point, rather than have that water come straight down, we're sending it this way to be captured and then drained from there. You know, there's no spot here where that catch basin, that area where the catch basin is just gonna be gone, it's gonna be graded.
Any other questions?
I think this is a huge improvement over what was out there before, because before the stormwater would come straight down the asphalt driveway, and any sand or anything that was put on there in the winter would have got washed into that catch basin and then gone out into the lake. And now we're filtering all the water through the permeable pavers, so that can't happen anymore. And because he's got permeable pavers, he probably will not be sanding that much because you have less instance for ice to form on the pavers.
Any other current concerns or questions for Gary, or, Paul or Mike?
What's the maintenance on that extra drainage catch basin? Do you have to clean that out every once
The
in a
one
while?
that's down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't really filled, but we do check it and we can empty it. 'Cause
You have a
again,
lid on or whatever?
the pipe is up by the surface of the lawn, and the bottom is at least 8 feet, and it's
Okay.
encircled in
So you've never had to
in a
clean
barrel.
that sump out?
It's actually only been there, this was something we did probably 4 years ago.
Okay.
And this was something that Steve had suggested that we do when we were dealing with the water that was all on this side of the,
With the water table so high now, with all of the rain, is any water coming out of the top of that?
no, as you may recall, it was before the board last year, we raised the seawall and the elevation here and brought in fill and topsoil here. And now we have a dry backyard. We don't have a squishy water coming up from the grass anymore. So we've gotten above that water table. But I've never had water come out of this.
No.
It's always that far below the surface.
Great.
Gary, anything?
I have one question, one question. In the wintertime, as far as permeable pavers, when you're plowing that driveway, it glazes over with ice, and we are directing every bit of water down that driveway.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I know the ice problem very well already.
Okay. Just because they say permeable pavers, in the wintertime, water freezes. You know, the only advantage you have here is you have a southern exposure, but, direction, and this is directed to the engineer, what do you think the problems are gonna be with
Ice
flow over the top of the permeable pavers in the wintertime?
I think it would be reduced because you only get ice when you have meltwater. And when you have meltwater, it will permeate through the permeable pavers because it's meltwater. There will be no ice there.
So if I might say, the walkway that is part of the driveway there, that's permeable pavers now, this past winter, that has always cleared, but the pavement on the driveway was ice. So we've lived that
So they work.
experience,
They
and it
actually
works.
They work. Okay.
Yeah.
So the worst thing that can happen here, in my eyes, is, all right, we have one of those weird storm events where we got water running down the asphalt driveway and it freezes up, and Paul's got to get out of his house, so he goes up and sands. And what happens is that sand will get washed down into the permeable pavers and it'll start filling in the cracks. And he's just got to be diligent in the spring, go out there, inspect it, and make sure everything's working good. And if it's getting clogged up, I know he doesn't want to hear this, but you get a wet vac and you just suck the stuff out and then put back in the nice 3/8 inch crushed stone in between the blocks. But that will fill in if you're putting in any fines down there. So it watched. I have the whole maintenance program on the second sheet, the plans.
Yeah.
We've rarely used sand and salt on the current driveway because I'm very aware of not wanting it there and having it end up in the lake. So we are very, there are times when we can't walk up it and we've had to put a little bit down, but we try not to. One of the beauties of this project is this whole new area is much more level than what we don't have any level spot now. So we won't have to do any sand here. If there's gonna be any sanding, it would be up there. And frankly, I've tried to go out there with a leaf blower and blow it away when we're done, when it melts, and try to prevent it from washing down. So, you know, we're gonna be diligent about trying to keep it out of here as best as possible, and we will use it as little as possible.
From the commission's point of view, once we close this phase of the public hearing, it'll be opened up to the audience. So if there are any other questions to Paul? Michael, anything?
Nothing that Engineer Mike Sherman has not answered.
And if there's approval, you're comfortable with that condition?
With the condition that
Okay.
the pipe be higher, yes, I understand why that would be workable, so that's fine by me.
So we'll close this phase of the public hearing and open it up to the public if
Yeah,
there's anybody.
yeah, I mean, you're not,
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to this, for this public hearing?
Yeah, I've got an application in for a septic.
no,
On this, no.
Very
I'm not putting a septic in, yeah, sorry.
I'm not gonna add to your.
Into our roads, right?
Very good.
All right, so then we'll officially close the public hearing.
just understand that there can be no more testimony once the public hearing is closed. I know you know that, but just if there's anything you feel has not been said that needs to be said, say it now, or,
I think we've actually covered it pretty well. I can't think of anything else, so.
All right, is there a motion to close public hearing?
I'll make a motion to.
Jeff, second. Gary? All in favor of closing the public hearing? It's unanimous? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was nice to almost see you.
Yes. You're welcome.
All right, take care, everybody.
We'll move into old business now, and we'll revisit the application in its sequence where it belongs on the agenda. Under old business, the application is 21-47. Mr. McGinnis, is anybody here from that application?
Mr. McGinnis has confirmed with me that he would like to withdraw his application. We received that in writing. He's going to reapply later in the year when he can actually get here and present in front of you.
Well, he was out of time anyway, so.
Yes, this would be the last meeting, so he's going to,
So it's been withdrawn
it's been withdrawn, there's no need to vote it down.
by applicant. Thank you very much. Next order of business is B 22-01. It's a modification of 20-56. David Pergo.
Mr. Pago has asked for a continuance. There were several questions from the Wetlands Commission last month about being able to get the contractor that he would be using to actually do the rock cutting up here to answer some questions and providing those answers. But Mr. Pago said that his contractor was very busy and he wasn't able to get out to the site, look at everything, and provide written answers. He does have one more month. The only other thing about this one that's worth mentioning is that there was some question about whether or not there was concrete that had gone from the wall into the lake because of how the pictures that Mr. Pago had presented looked. But I went back out the day after our last meeting. I can confirm that is sand. I think it's just that the color of the pictures was washed out and grainy, so it looked gray, but it is all standard lake bottom sand.
I was there today, and I didn't see any evidence of concrete. I saw sand.
Lots of muddy sand.
Okay, so there's all in favor of granting this continuance? Okay, it's unanimous. Mr. Marino?
Welcome back.
Yes.
State your name.
Right with my board.
Okay, are there any concerns at this point before we move on, voting on this application that we'd like to bring to Mr. Marino's attention? Anybody, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve this application with the contingency that we raise the pipe out of the permeable pavers higher up in the bed and turn the holes upright.
Is there a second?
Second.
Jackie? Anybody, any comments or anything? Everybody comfortable where we're going?
Can I ask you a quick question?
No, you can't.
Don't now, because we're gonna vote.
Well, that was just one clarity on something.
Go ahead.
You say raise it, and there's been discussions, raise it, how far?
That would be up to the engineer to ensure that
As
the design
discussed.
will still work.
Yeah,
I
as
think
discussed.
I think Mike's comfortable with what he needs to do.
Okay.
And I think whoever the contractor is that's going to do it, when Michael visits it, will look for it, and he should be doing it the right way for your benefit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we need a cash bond also, or do we want to vote first and then a cash bond?
No, no, decide on the bond
Okay,
first.
we should probably get a cash bond.
How much? A lot of money.
$1,000.
$1,000, that's
$1,500.
cheap, cheap, come on.
How
cheap.
long's your waterfront?
What's that?
How long's your waterfront?
How wide?
Yeah, how wide is it?
About 45 feet.
He's not doing any work on the waterfront, he's doing
Well, he's
everything
gotta
up
put
on the
sill
hill,
fence
come
up.
on.
He's gotta put the sill fence up, so. Okay, you pick a number.
Just by the scope of the work and the raising of the house and, you're eliminating a driveway and diverting water all over the place, I'm more comfortable with 2,000. It's not a deal breaker, but that's my comfort level, seriously. Gary,
I'm fine with 2,000.
you want less?
No,
Speak
that's
up.
fine, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
Your check doesn't bounce.
Go out and play golf with him and figure it out.
Take that in bank
All right, all those
funds.
in favor with the two conditions of approval? It's unanimous? Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
A
guys.
long haul, but you got what you wanted.
I appreciate it.
Looking
You're
forward to seeing how it comes out.
Yeah.
Should be nice.
Okay, give me a second to get rid of some of these papers.
Steve, what happened to McTeague?
Who?
McTeague. Dude, McTeague.
We didn't see McKee yet.
All right, all right. I thought,
No, that's way down, that's on the new business.
yeah.
Okay? I'll get rid of pictures, minutes, Jim Rollins goes over here, Wayne Warren is over here. All right, the next order of business is application 22-06. The owner is Brian Bothler.
I believe it's Boothelier, but I spoke to Mr. Boothelier. He won't be here. He lives in Georgia. I advised him. He called a couple of days ago and asked about his application. I advised him that based on what he was asking for, which was adding a structure to his waterfront closer to the boundary line than an existing structure, it would be wise for him to produce a survey, because the commission's pulse is to have a survey of anything along the waterfront if you're going to be adding a new structure and doing work there. So he's asked for a continuance until he can produce one. Didn't fly up for the meeting.
This is his
Second meeting.
second meeting, so.
Yes.
All
Still
right,
got plenty of time.
is there a motion to continue?
I make a motion to continue.
Gary, second. Jeff, all those in favor of continuing? Okay, thank you.
Well through it.
Okay, thank you. We're into new business, 22-07, James Lawson appeared.
Yeah, James Lawson, 106 Suckerbrook Road, septic application.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Lawson, you want to begin?
Yeah, so, we just purchased this land, this property, last year. Contingent on, purchasing it was, a good septic, inspection inspection, and previous, or the owner said he had one, I wasn't happy with it, just by noticing some disturbance in the soil in the backyard, so I had another inspection done, and we found that there were some things that were done, so we immediately contacted the town to see if there were any permits pulled on it, nothing on record, so it was a contingent to purchase a property that we would fund and the septic system. So, that's kind of the situation that I'm in. So, we had the plans drawn up, had Julie Crew out there from Torrington Area Health. We spent all afternoon poking around in the yard and quite a few test pits. And we did find that there were some modifications that were done that were not permitted, and full redesign was done. Actually, the owner of the house who flipped it hired me to go around and do all the work, get an engineer, get Julie out there, get a machine out there, and which he paid for eventually, and then provide him with a plan. And he didn't like any of the plans because they were all way more expensive than he thought they would be. But in any event, we did settle. My ignorance was not going through wetlands. I didn't have anything on my property card that said I had wetlands, but it was brought to my attention that I did need to make sure that I went through wetlands. So I hired a soil scientist. He came out, mapped them out, got the information to my engineer, replotted those on, and he basically redesigned the whole thing to fit based on where the wetlands was. Went through Julie Crew again, got it all through there, and now we're pretty much ready. It seems right now that I didn't need to buy anything different. I've had a machine on site since November of last year, pretty much stopped until we went through this process and make sure we got all our T's crossed and I's dotted.
The area that should we visit the site, it's easy to discern where you're proposing to remedy the situation, your situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, right now, the septic system is horizontal to the back and takes up the whole backyard. It's, the whole yard's cleared. When it enters the woods is where the wetlands is, and so everything's gonna be basically in my backyard. It will need to be a raised system, so, it'll be raised a little bit, but yeah, it's a pretty square lot. It's all cleared right now. The only thing that I am doing is, in order to have the silt fence in, I need to do a little clearing so I can get that in front of the wetlands barrier. It's just little saplings. It's not major. There's one or two trees that are fairly large that I'll probably just go around, not take them down, but,
Not take them down.
yeah, not take them down. I mean, there's some, ash has been an issue. There is a larger ash out there that I am concerned about, that I may consider. But I don't believe that, at least right now, that it's a threat to anything, so I'm probably not gonna tackle that. It sounds like that's probably something I'm gonna have to, if that's close to the wetlands, then I'm gonna have to permit to pull that tree down. It is larger than 6 inches.
You can take down one tree in a wetland without, it's when you start clearing and opening up forest area that it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I made
So-
a note of that half inch, taking down half the trees that are 6 inches. Yeah, there may be 3 trees in there that may be in the way.
That you're just gonna drop, you're not gonna take the stump out, right? You're
Oh, no,
dropping
some
the
will
tree.
stay, yeah.
You're just dropping
Yep,
them and
drop it.
stay.
Yep. What about stump grinding? Is that an issue?
In wetlands or in the
No,
buffer?
it's not none of this is in wetlands.
Yeah, so
I'm
no-
not
so it's
touching
all the
any
review
tree
area.
in wetlands
Yeah.
at all. It would be inside of the non-wetland zone,
The buffer area.
the buffer area, if that's what you call it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's within 75 feet of wetlands, but I do not plan on cutting any trees down in wetlands at all.
Well, I mean, the regulated, you can see that the regulated area, the 75-foot buffer area, extends, I mean, the pool is in the review area. This is the 75.
Yeah, so the tree line that they have, I'm talking 1 or 2 feet past past that tree line, clearing that, so it's all very lightly wooded between the wetlands barrier and that tree line. There's a couple larger trees in there, not in the wetlands, that we would take down, grind down, but
Those-
not remove the stump.
The wetlands are all flagged, right?
Yeah.
The flags are out there, so
Yep.
they're clearly visible.
Yeah, I've actually, so when the guy was out there, he tied them to branches and they're swaying and everything, so I've gone through, as I've been in through there, taken, the reflective plow stakes and tying the wetlands tag on that, so if there's any brush that's been removed for the silt fencing, we know where those boundaries are and those aren't touched,
When are you proposing to do this?
as soon as possible. Like I
Is
said,
anything, anything
So,
backing up into the house?
Probably towards the end of next month. Based on, so like I said, my guy's had his machine there since November. He's got other jobs that are stacking up now, so he's actually gonna be taking his machine out this week. He's gotta do a couple things, with it. Probably at least not starting for 3 weeks.
Is there anything backing up into the house or anything like that?
No, thankfully, it has been functioning fine. Yeah, we did have an issue 2 weeks after we moved in, but it was the pump. Replaced the pump, and ever since then, we haven't had an issue, but, it is a bad septic system. So and I expressed this to Michael when he showed up, that, I get that all this needs to be done, and I wanna make sure that I do everything correctly, but the longer that septic system is in there, the worse it is for the environment. The guy-
So
the guy who touched it, there's no paper around the stone. He threw in a track of stone, threw in some pipe, threw stone over top of it, and raked dirt over top of it. So, one of the tests, we did a cross-section with Julie, because she wanted it, and I was totally okay with it, to expose one of the pipes. We were already at water at one of those pipes, so. It's all new. I'm not afraid of anything breaking, but, and we've had a ton of rain. It's really not sloppy back there. I don't see anywhere where it's
Not dangerous?
not.
Failures.
Yeah, not smelling anything.
From staff's perspective, what happened for us was we got a call that there was some equipment piling up, and it was just an excavator at first. This is back in late October, early November. We got a call about that, and then we saw the septic stuff going. But because the equipment was actually not on Mr. Lawson's site, but is on this right-of-way that goes between them, we weren't sure whose it was at first, so it took us a little while to contact him. By the time we did that, winter was starting to settle in. We told him, you got to get this, because there's wetlands on nearby properties. There's been a couple of these tank replacements on Sucker Brook that came before the commission in past years, so we were suspicious of it. And so it's been a couple months. In terms of making sure that you don't have any spill from the septic into the wetlands, that's always a good thing. No direct wetlands disturbance, everything's been flagged. I'm comfortable with it in terms of it's a good thing to get done. If the commission doesn't have any concerns that they see about the task, it could be given as an agent approval if you want to allow the applicant to get moving on it as fast as possible.
How much fill are you bringing in?
That,
How much fill are you bringing in?
it's all sand. So, yeah, I'll have to look out here to see what it is, but basically it is,
Estimated yardage.
I don't think he's got any. I can get that for you.
But I don't see a tracking pad, I don't know. Coming in, I would venture to say after a tracking pad.
Well, it's over the existing driveway at the front of the house comes in. You could have a tracking pad, a stone pad leading from the driveway to the work area that you could then reseed afterward. If that would make you more comfortable for moving the topsoil fill.
Guaranteed it's gonna get muddy, you know what I mean, you're gonna have.
Yeah, it does get a little squishy on one side. There is actually room on the north side of the house. There's a pretty decent path back there that is not anywhere near wetlands, doesn't get wet at all. That has been another option. The engineer, I was out there, and actually the contract company was out there, and he was comfortable with going on that side too, if we had to. And we also did talk about if there was a need, that we would be putting in a temporary road for that equipment.
How long is the job, beginning to end?
3 weeks,
That long?
yeah. Well, actually, you know, he gave me 3 weeks only because he had another job that was squished in, so that's probably changed now that everything's kind of stacked up. I know he was thinking about getting approval with doing the tank first and allowing us to discharge into the tank before the rest of the fields are done, but we've scratched that and we're just gonna do it all in one shot. So it's probably down to a couple weeks, but I have to meet with him tomorrow after this, based on what, any questions that had come up here. We're gonna do a site walkthrough now that the flags are there for the wetlands, so he understands all that. But he won't be able to work on it for a couple weeks.
Michael, are you available to meet with him and the contractor tomorrow? If it becomes an agent determination,
Yes, absolutely. I'm available to meet most of the time. But yes, at any time tomorrow. I don't know when and where you're meeting. But if
Well,
you're
it'll be
meeting
at the
in town-
house, but I would have to call him and check his availability.
Absolutely. I work 8 to 6 on Thursdays, and I only have, I think, 2 short meetings in my calendar, so I should be broadly
I
available.
mean, if it's not tomorrow, I can meet
Yeah,
his
okay
schedule.
then.
So probably easier to meet his schedule than it would be my guy, so.
that'll help.
I'll just work it out.
That'll help if it becomes an agent determination.
So does Torrington Valley help from the tree line, or Torrington area help? Where's the approval
So-
office also?
Yes.
So that's what he was told.
Yeah, this
the-
is approved.
From the
Oh, I don't
tree
have
line.
it.
It was- it was
She
engineered,
has
right,
it.
so-
Yeah.
What
They
he-
have-
you can
okay.
kind of see in the picture that I took of the property, it's light forest. He's gonna take about a foot or 2 of it, move back the tree line in the
I think
review
she
area
said that.
just so he
She
can
said
get
that.
silt fence in around this.
Yeah, I just looked at this. I just did this myself. Yeah, I actually had to go back to her a second
You
time.
can't come across.
Because once the wetlands
No,
was
you can't.
identified, we had to change the configuration of the actual.
I haven't dealt with them personally for
No, because there isn't enough room
25,
to do around the
28 years.
outside.
At that time, they were great. They got really new stuff. But again, he's been replaced probably 2 or 3 times since.
Okay, gentlemen, where do we wanna go with this?
If, so Mr. Baganelli noted that there was the question of the access route, and the question of the total yardage of material that's being brought in as questions before the commission that could be nice to have answers for the record. If it's the commission's pleasure to request a stone temporary road anti-tracking pad to the access area, as well as answer the question of how many total yards of material are being brought in, those could be conditions of an agent determination.
I think what's more important here, where are you gonna discharge your materials that are coming out? I mean, you're going to a designated area? Saying here, your whole system that you have is coming off the property.
Yeah, so so the tank, we were gonna crush and bury. And there is a spot on the north side, like I was saying, where there's access here on the north side. There's a very large gully that probably 90% of it's gonna go, and then the rest is gonna get hauled out.
Does that gully divert water anywhere?
No, it's never
just-
wet.
It's not, okay.
No, there's a buried drain from the gutters that go in there, but that whole gully is dry as a bone. Surprisingly enough, there's no water that catches.
Looked like it was
My road's
man-made?
my front lawn's kind of an angle off Sucker Brook, but it all goes to the driveway side. So I've got like waterfalls coming off my steps off the driveway, so it all diverts on that.
Do you think that gully was man-made? Or do you
It
think-
kinda looks like it
Yeah.
is, because from my neighbor's yard, it comes over a little bit into our line and then it just kinda drops off. So I don't know if it was raised for his property and mine was left lower, but it is kind of a natural, I wouldn't even call it a swale, because there's never any water in there when we get rained on. But the idea is that, I mean, the tank's not very big, crushing that and burying that's not a big deal, but obviously the majority of the material that's in there would be used for some areas that were low, and then the rest of it
Would you be planning on stripping the topsoil of that area, putting your fill in, and then putting your topsoil back on?
Yeah, the topsoil is not the word I would use that's in the back. So, in the center of the yard where the current septic system is like hard as stone. It looks like it was compacted gravel. The grass isn't really even growing on it. Unfortunately, when you look at the pictures that the real estate guy looked at, it was lush green grass, but there's no topsoil on there at all. So he's gotta bring in, that's what the sheet calls for the sand and everything, and then
Being that, my opinion, being it doesn't show tracking pad, it doesn't show the area that he wants to fill, the swale that he wants to fill, okay?
You're comfortable?
You don't wanna hold this up in a septic system, will move along, but I would try to put that into an agent determination as far as for Michael to look at where the fill is going, and make sure it has adequate silt fence around it.
So based on the fact that if fill from the current site is gonna move into that gully, I think that, things that should be part of an agent determination would be, total topsoil being brought in, where all the material that's coming out is going and in what amount. So how much is gonna go and fill the north part of the property, how much is being hauled off, and then, having the tracking pad in a revised plan that shows that stone access tracking pad. Those three things, ensuring that we have updated plans and documentation that shows those three things. Once that's submitted, I could sign off on this, and if it takes less than a month, then Mr. Lawson's ahead of time on his septic replacement.
Okay.
We good with that?
Yeah. You're gonna be a septic system engineer by the time, after a year or two of this.
I hope I
Alright, so
never,
then,
never am.
for purposes of clarity, you'll meet with Michael.
Yeah, so
in the
we'll
next
walk
couple of
through all
days.
those things that he just said, we'll show him where we want it to go, I'll get the information.
So
as
we're
far as-
gonna accept this application and refer it to the agent for a determination.
Okay,
He'll come back to us next month and say approve it or disapprove it,
okay.
based
So
on
those conditions.
how it transpires between you and the contractor and Michael's visual take on it,
Yep,
okay?
sounds good.
All right, do we need a motion to that effect?
I believe that you need a motion to accept and refer to agent determination.
So, but if you'll approve it if all those conditions.
He's gonna
are met.
recommend us.
Oh,
approve it.
no, usually with an
No.
agent determination.
So you're gonna outright,
Yeah,
you're
so
gonna come back and
if
say you approve it?
yes, if
Okay.
I approved it or not. So if you kick
Okay.
it to me for an approval, then you
Good.
say, once you're satisfied, we're
Good,
satisfied.
thank you.
I think that just expedites it.
Yep,
It's not
good.
holding him up.
No,
very
good,
much.
Doesn't have to
good,
wait
and it
another
doesn't,
month.
you know,
So if you can
good.
get everything to us in 2 weeks, you start 2 weeks earlier.
Sooner you start, the better.
Yeah, I'd like to hold that in front of it's approved, you now need to move.
Okay, we need a motion to refer this
Accept
application,
and
to
refer.
accept this application number, 22-07, Mr. Lawson, James Lawson, to install and to repair and install existing septic system. I'll make the motion to that effect. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
To refer it to me for an
We're
agent.
gonna accept it first, that we accept this application. Okay, it's unanimous. And now we're gonna make a motion that we refer this to the agent for determination, with the additions that were cited before. Okay, do you wanna read it into the record, or we're good?
So those conditions would be, the, record of how much, fill is going to be brought onto site. It would be the placement of a, stone anti-tracking pad along the lower side of the house, the south side of the house, and location on the plan, and a record of where all of the material that is being removed from the other septic system is going, and its placement on the plan if there's going to be an area that's filled to the north of the house.
And we
Those
don't
are
have,
conditions.
we don't have to address the issue of trees,
And the silt fence around.
and we don't have to address the issue of trees.
If 2 or 3 trees are coming down and they're not even in the wetlands, it's not
Okay,
clearing.
okay. Is there a second? Okay, Gary, all those in favor of the referral with the additions? It's unanimous? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Like, I'm gonna be calling tomorrow,
Okay.
let you know what the time.
I'll be here bright and early.
Yep, thanks for everyone's time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Big plan.
Good evening, are you ready?
No, not yet. Give me 1 second.
These are just some photographs and some history of the site.
Do you want to do your one?
Okay, I'm hoping you're here for application 22-08.
Good evening, Jim
Tide, professional land surveyor with Arthur Howell and Associates.
Okay?
I'd like to just start out with this pamphlet I just handed out to you. It's just a brief history of the site before I get into the site plan. So this is a lakefront cottage. It was constructed in 1923.
No.
Per your tax card,
1923?
1923. And then there's some brief history of building permits from '04, it was remodeled. In '04 again, they added a deck, all approved by the town. In 2009, the building was torn down and reconstructed.
Okay.
And I believe a second floor was added at that time. And then another amendment shortly thereafter to add a second floor balcony. And then in 2011, they got a certificate of use and occupancy. And then the first photo here is an old photo. I do not know the date of this photo. If I had to guess, I would say it was late 70s, early 80s. You'll see here of the house on stanchions for one of its previous reconstructions of its foundations. The next photo is a current photo of the property today, is how it looks today. It's basically 2 stories with a basement, and then this photo here shows a detail of the lower floor. You can see here sticks out from, this is the basement level, it's more of like a kayak storage and utility room, and then the upper floor is set back a couple of feet from it. This next photo here shows the current conditions of the foundations on the boathouse. We had a structural engineer look at the boathouse, and the foundations are falling apart. There's steel beams, they're rusting through, and there's old concrete piers that are not doing their job properly at this time. So the structural engineer is recommending that we tear the whole structure down and reconstruct it and start fresh with new footings and everything. You can see in this photo here, there's currently 3 piers on the lakeside holding up the cottage. The other side of the cottage is sitting on the shore. I'll show you that picture in a second. This middle pier is not even touching anything, it is sunk. It is not doing its job. And then here on this last photo is a picture of the underside, on the shore side. There's a little bit of a foundation on the shore on the high ground. And as you can see, the steel is really rotten and rusted and not doing its job properly.
This was rebuilt in '08?
'09, yeah.
'09.
This,
I know. It sits very close to the water.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And with the wave action and stuff, it's constant.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chair, did you have a question?
everything you described, you're talking about this present structure,
yes,
which is a relatively new structure.
from 2009, yes.
There was an application on this structure within the last couple of years when there was a sale going on to separate this from.
No, that was the one next to it, I believe.
No.
The one next to
Something with
it.
the water billing or something.
So, my knowledge or recollection of the history of that property
You may
is,
get it right.
Brian O'Haron had that large house, cottage,
Right.
summer-only place across the street. He had a boathouse with it. He bought the property next to him, between him and Watercourses, I believe, who also had a boathouse on it. And I guess he rebuilt both of them. And the one that was in front of his house, he split off and sold as a individual property.
Sold the boathouse.
But there's 2 of them, because he owned 2 properties.
Okay,
So-
I'm only familiar with one structure there.
Well, they were in front of us for the trees recently.
Yeah,
That-
there were
that
2
property
houses
was
up on the hill.
Right.
There's a boathouse directly north of us that looks brand new.
That's this one.
No.
No.
They're both.
The
210
neighboring
West
property
Wakefield.
is a brand new boathouse.
Oh, Watercourses.
No. So Brian O'Haron owned a house across the street and the boathouse that he totally
The brown
rebuilt.
one, this.
Not that one, the other one next to it.
There's a boathouse right here that is brand new.
Okay, then he bought the property next to him and put that huge addition on.
Yeah.
That's
up
between
on the
him
off-
and Watercourses.
That's on the off side of the lake.
Yeah, they're both
the
on,
hill.
they're both on that side. Like.
Yeah.
And then this is the boathouse that went with that property, I believe.
There's a property owned by Mr. Kenneth Seymour at 210 West Wakefield. I think that's the one you're thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, my clients just bought both of these properties about a year ago.
Right. They were here because
Big house on
The
the,
big house up on the hills right there.
right.
but they
And
combined
then,
2 lots.
and the
together.
brown,
And this.
Boathouse.
This brown boathouse.
Okay, and now you're here because of this brown boat
And
house?
they're two separate parcels.
They're two separate parcels.
okay.
211 and
Owned by the
312.
same people.
Right, but you're here because of this brown boathouse?
Yes, currently their application here, so this is the existing survey of the property here. As you can see, we only have about 2,253 square feet of land. And it sits, you know, just off the shoulder of the road, it goes down to the lake level, and then the boathouse is cantilevered out over the lake.
Yeah. So your proposal,
You say reconstruct residence, this is residence?
This is a two-bedroom residence,
So
it's
it's
a
not a
year-round home.
boathouse?
Well, I refer to a boathouse because that's what the owners are calling it. It is a residence. It is a two-bedroom residence. It has city water and city sewer.
Is this
And it is
deeded
gonna
and
be,
and you're proposing you're gonna tear
across
this
the
down?
street?
we're gonna
Hold
tear
on.
it down and reconstruct it in the
It's-
exact same
And
footprint.
it's over 14 years old?
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
And I'm just gonna emphasize that I think it's important that one person talk at a time so that
Yeah.
the audio is preserved just in case we need it.
Okay, thank you for your diligence.
So Jeff had just asked me, and I'm sure maybe we should let Jim get through his presentation, cause he may cover all of these
There's
questions.
gonna be a lot of questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if you just bear with me while I walk you through it, so the proposal is to tear down the boathouse and the residence and reconstruct it. It has an existing deck that is cantilevered over the deck with various, it's 3.6 feet on this side, 9.3 feet on this side, and 8.3 feet on this side, and we're gonna replace that in kind. The lower floor, as I pointed out to you, sticks out to here. We are proposing an addition at the first floor to bring it out to this, to the same line of the lower level. So there's an existing foundation currently that is at 5.8 feet to the property line, and the proposed house will also be 5.8 feet to the property line in the same location. I'll show you, I have some architecturals later on in the set, I'll show you, explain that a little more later. It's 3 utility sheds. They wanted a place to hide the mechanicals, the electric meter, a place to bring in the water line, sewer line. They wanted a little storage shed and just a place to enclose their trash cans, because the lot is very small and it's make it easier access for them when they need to have them emptied. We're proposing to add a generator onto this side. There's gonna be another condenser here for AC for the residents. We're doing a new wall at the property line. First off, we're doing a fence that starts at that grade, and then next to that, the fence is not on top of the wall, but next to that, and the fence meets the town standards for being able to look through it. We're gonna be doing a retaining wall all across the front, and then we wanna drop the grade down 3 feet. This wall will be no higher than 3 feet, and it's gonna return here. And then we're gonna be doing another retaining wall at the edge of the lake, returning at the house here and starting at the residence and coming back over here. That wall will also be no taller than 3 feet, so it meets the Highland Lake District standards. We are leaving the view line open up over here. The Highland Lake District requires a 9-foot wide view line. That's gonna be on this side over here, so people can still see out to the lake. This fence is open, people will be able to see through this fence. Also, there are 2 trees that we're taking down. There's an 8-inch oak and a 6-inch pine, but we are replacing it with 8 trees. We're doing 3 river birches over here, 3 river birches over here, and 2 flowering trees on either side of the walkway. And then the owners would like to have a set of stairs to give them access down to the lake. This is our site development plan. So we are proposing to add a drainage system, but currently there is no drainage system. The current house has legal drainage down to the lake. So we are proposing to capture the roof water and put it into the ground, and they're designed for 100-year storm. So providing some benefit there for water quality and peak attenuation. Also help cool the water off before it enters back out into the ground. We're gonna be doing, the new foundation is gonna, the structural engineers would like 3 feet of wall and 3 feet of wall. Here and here, and 3 feet of wall and 3 feet of wall. He will not need the center pier. Currently, there's about 12 feet of foundation between the 3 piers, and we're gonna have about 12 feet of foundation with 2 piers. So we'll have the same amount of concrete exposure at the water line. We're gonna be proposing to do a turbidity wall all along here to protect for construction. We're wrapping the site with a silt fence. There is a gravel drive here. I have a detail on the plans for the construction entrance. There is a gravel driveway here. This is such a tight site that there's really not gonna be much of moving material around. There's a little bit of cutting and a little bit of filling, and I calculated that on a latter page. Regarding the return walls at the property line, your regulations require that wall be in 2 feet unless we seek permission from the neighbors, and we are reaching out to the neighbors to get permission for those retaining walls to return at the property line. If we can't, we'll just pull them in 2 feet, we have the room. We are also petitioning the town. This property is all sloped. You can see in the photo there of the residence. And we are petitioning the town for a text change amendment on your regulations to allow development on 25% slopes via Zoning Board of Appeals. And so that we've already filed that application with you. We have a public hearing coming up on that. Because we need to obtain that in order to get the site to work. Otherwise, we'd probably only be able to tear the house down and reconstruct it. But the owners would like to, just level this off to create a little area for them to enjoy and give them access to the water. Here's our soil erosion control and project narrative. I think it was about 30 cubic yards of material they're gonna have to bring in to fill in the retaining walls. Construction entrance detail, erosion controls, the turbidity detail is on the site development plan. I think these plans will help you understand the residents a little better. Okay, so these are the architect's plans. The lower level is just kayak storage and a small utility room. And that's currently how it exists right now. There's a little place for a furnace. They want to have a washer and dryer down here. This room is waterproof. This room here, these are just like decking. The water will come up and through. It's always been kind of like a wet room. It's going to continue to be that way. The first floor is just going to be one big room.
When you say first floor, now you're talking street level, basically.
Street level, yep. So the first floor here is going to have a kitchen, bathroom, some storage, and just one large room that will go up a set of stairs here in the corner to one large room. Currently, it's 2 bedrooms. We're basically turning it into 1 bedroom. And it'll have beds built in on either side. And we're not changing the building height. It'll be exactly the same height that it is now. There are some profiles of the building. This is from the lake looking back. So this is the utility area, kayak storage, first level, second level. There is a cantilevered balcony on the second floor. We're going to reconstruct it, just make it slightly smaller on its length, but it'll come out about the same length. And then this is the view from the street side. These are the 3 sheds that we're going to be seeking a variance for. And we're redoing the windows, so as you can see, it'll look much nicer than it does right now. And then here's a side view here. And then another side view here. And a breakaway section on the structure itself. Do you have any questions?
You kidding or what? That's a lot to digest there.
I know I threw a lot at you in a short amount of time.
How deep is the water there?
In the first photo of the old cabin, you can see the stanchions that they put up to raise it. If you figure each one of those is about 6 inches, I'm figuring at the lakeside, I haven't measured it myself yet, I'm thinking it's about 8 to 9 feet deep
So,
on the lakeside where the piers are gonna go.
so you're never gonna get to dry land?
They're gonna have to, no, we're gonna be using
Pounded
coffer
mortars?
dams
Okay.
to do all the construction for all the retaining walls. For this wall, the little bit of foundation that sits on the shore, this wing wall, and this wall here, they're gonna be doing a coffer dam for construction. We wanna get started right away, once we get all the approvals.
And what type of coffer dam proposing? What?
It's basically, they're gonna be, putting in, you know, walls, putting the water out,
Steel
getting them
steel
down to,
sheathing, or what do you?
I don't, it's means and methods, you know, I'm not the contractor, it's means and methods for construction. So, they will not be driving piles, but it'll be a temporary cofferdam that will be removed, after the installation of the piers.
Do we know what the lake beds, what
You can see in the photo there, it's very rocky.
So will they have to, they'll have to excavate the lake
That hasn't changed in
bed?
all these years, so.
We'll have to excavate lake bed.
The structural engineer said they're gonna have to go down 3.5 feet below the lake bed floor to get proper footing. That might be less if we end up getting ledge, and we can pin to ledge. We won't really know until we open it up.
You're aware, and your contractor is aware that machinery is not allowed on the lake bed.
We're not gonna be putting machinery on the lake bed.
Are you proposing to get the rocks out and everything else that's down there?
That's means and methods, I can get some more information for you from the contractor.
I know, but
Your arm's gonna be,
if,
your jackhammer,
Yeah, I mean, this is not, this cottage is not that big, you know, I mean, a long excavator can reach down and, you know, they can work in that area and remove the material and lift it out with the cables.
Is your temporary construction gonna be in the town's right of way?
There might be some temporary, blockages
be in the middle of the street.
of the roadway, but the site is very small. We are proposing if there is any storage, you know, we can utilize the driveway over here for storage. We're gonna be using we have a driveway right here that we can use for temporary storage of any materials if necessary.
Okay.
I suggested to the contractor that they pull everything off-site and not store anything.
Is the temporary storage area depicted?
Yes.
Yep.
So this is the same people that own the house across the street?
It is, it happens to be.
Different names?
Yes, but it need not be. It
Okay.
just happens to be.
Yeah, they're not tied together. They could be sold individually if they so choose.
Okay.
But obviously, you know, whoever's living here is probably gonna wanna always control this property, and it's worth more together than it is to break it up.
I just seemed like there were different names.
No, no.
Were they same names?
Same
Okay.
Stephen Heffer,
thing.
Okay, I'm just going by memory.
Stephen Heffer and Hina Sultan
Same two
are the
last names.
owners. The tax card hasn't been updated. Brian O'Haran was the previous owner.
Right,
Well,
right. I've never seen a cofferdam in
Tell me
action.
about,
And
You may
I've
wanna
heard
ask
of
for an
them.
Hang on,
engineer
Jeff.
review.
Excuse me?
tell me about the wet room.
So the basement level essentially is like for utilities and kayak storage. You can see here in the section, they just want to be storing some kayaks on the wall. And the flooring will be just like decking with gaps between it to let the water flow through.
What is it now?
Just that. It's like decking with gaps between the boards, so that if you bring anything wet in there, the water will just go right through the floor.
So in the past, that's where the boats came in?
There was never boats.
There was never boat, nobody ever parked a boat in this building, other than a kayak or a canoe. I call it a boathouse because it's on the edge of the lake.
It's a lake term.
There's
The architect's been referring to it as.
There is a boat lift on this property to the
Yes,
south side,
On
yes?
the south side of the house, there is a boat lift, and that will continue to remain, right here.
And the waterproof part of the basement
Yep.
exists already?
It exists currently. We don't have a design from the structural engineer just yet, he's still working on things. But we are gonna hope to try and lift this utility room floor as high as we can when we reconstruct things. It may only be about 6 inches, but it'll help protect the foundation and give it a longer longevity, than it's currently.
Well, one thing for sure is we're gonna need the details of that. The sooner you get it to us, the sooner we can digest it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say, just without polling the commission, my sense is that we're gonna ask for an independent review by an engineer.
Sure.
Just makes sense. There's too much for us to assimilate, into our heads and try to make.
I'll have I'll have the structural engineer prepare a report, and I'll also ask him to, give us a preliminary structural design.
And the sooner you get all of that information into our files, the sooner Pam or Michael will move it to an outside engineer for a review. So
Okay.
this process may take a little bit longer than normal.
Yep.
Just be aware of that.
Yep.
Your proposed beginning construction would be when, in the fall?
As soon as we get all the permits. We have to go through zoning board of appeals for special exception approval, as well as variances for the additions on the front. We still have to achieve the text change first, and if we don't get the text change, then this whole thing's getting redesigned. So,
What's the text?
The
change?
text change is likely, it's scheduled for a public hearing with planning and zoning for May 9th. And planning and zoning has already acknowledged that there may be, that's with the steep slope regulation.
That's the over
That
25%
current- yeah.
steep slope, you can't do anything, has in the past 9 months proven itself to potentially be a little bit onerous when you could, through good design, potentially develop a slope over 25%.
The sleep slope is between the road and the water.
Right, so right now it's in just a riprap, probably 33 to 50% grade,
it's
on
steep.
that
The whole
section.
thing is steep.
So turning that into livable flat ground
Usable.
requires those
And
multiple.
currently, right now, it's large riprap, like 5-6 inches in diameter. You can't even walk on it.
Yeah. No,
It's unusable.
Yeah, I know the site
Yeah.
fairly well. I didn't realize that the house is in a state that it has to be torn down to be remedied.
It was a surprise to us.
When you were initially talking about it, I thought it was a full gut with the initial.
We originally wanted to just gut it
Right.
and renovate it, but they brought the structural engineer on later. We probably should have brought him on earlier. And after reviewing things, once they dropped the lake level, we had him go out and look at things when the lake level was down back in December. And then he's recommending that we
Level it.
level it, tear it down, and start over.
He's 12 years
Yeah.
old.
That's what water damage will do to you. Water on steel.
I mean, you can see the rusting in the photos. I'm no structural engineer, but the steel doesn't look good.
How are you intending now with materials, are you to prevent similar damage to the base decking?
The foundation will be concrete reinforced with steel, which will, and by picking the floor up, we'll get it above the lake level a little bit more, and it'll help protect it longer, so that hopefully this won't happen again in the next 20 years.
My guess, this really can't realistically begin until the drawdown. Do you need?
They would like to start as soon as we achieve all the approvals, and by means of the cofferdams.
Well,
That's
Because
how-
even
that's
with
how
the deep
property is
drawdown, Steve, it's
established.
not gonna get to the bottom.
no.
Even the drawdown, they'll still probably need, the cofferdams.
Well, we have, for your purpose, I think you may be aware, there's no misunderstanding. We have basically two kinds of drawdowns. One that occurred this past winter, which is shallow,
Yeah, that's
where
what I
the lake
observed.
goes out 5-8 feet, and a deep drawdown, which goes way the hell out. So,
That would explain the older photograph.
Yeah. Deep drawdowns are, the drawdown schedule
Every
is normally
5 years.
We're
scheduled.
working on it right now.
every 5 years,
Yeah,
so
25.
if you need a deep drawdown, plan on 3 years, starting counting next winter.
That is what the point of the
Coffer
cofferdams is, they're gonna pump out the water, isolate the shoreline, pump out the water. Now, I did have one question about the cofferdams, you mentioned that you're gonna use a turbidity boom as well as a cofferdam?
Yes, extra protection.
Okay, so there's turbidity boom outside of the cofferdam during,
Yes, the
Okay.
entire time, we'll have a turbidity curtain all along the length of the activity area. And we have a detail.
right, even when you no longer have to go down to
We
foundations,
have
so
a
whenever
detail
you.
right here.
And what does that do?
It helps, if anything falls in the water, it'll help keep that disturbed water close to the shore and close to the construction site and not let it permeate out into the
We
lake.
had that once before, Matt Clausen had to do that once.
His was just a boom. This
Different?
is- Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
this is
this'll
really
be
good.
more substantial.
The only thing with turbidity curtain, the only problem I see is like during summer construction, the turbidity curtain, the way that these people, we have a big problem on this lake.
With the wakes and stuff.
And turbidity curtain will take a beating.
good point.
It's not good.
It's entirely possible the
That's
reason
gotta
the
be looked
foundation
at,
got
you know
so
what I mean?
bad is
Because
because
Say it again?
we're getting waves
Oh,
on that
yeah.
high coming ashore.
And they're on,
You know what I
they're on a
mean? So
straight
it's-
runaway there.
It is a big problem.
From Holland Beach straight out.
it is entirely possible that these large wake boats were one of the reasons that could contribute to the damage to this, but it's speculation.
You know, the construction will be phased with the foundation going in first, and then the retaining walls, so that we're, keep the site disturbance to a minimum, and also assist with, you know, times like that.
You really have very little workroom there.
It's 109 feet of length, there's, and 2,200 square feet of lot.
No, but you have from,
Very little work, it's about,
Yeah.
it's about 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah.
This side's 8 feet wide, this side's 12 feet wide, it might be a little bit wider over here.
and your workroom is basically, what, 7 or 8 feet to the street, if
Yeah.
that much.
But it won't even be that much if they're digging for a wall. If you're digging for a wall, you're gonna be sitting in the street.
You know, they can use a small Bobcat excavator for the retaining walls, and they'll probably need a bigger machine for the house foundations.
One important question to answer
Go ahead.
tonight, Mr. Chair, is whether or not this activity is considered a significant impact and there will be a public hearing required. Um,
Do we want it for public interest or for the possibility of an alternative? Can we, Pam, just one second, Mike, before you continue. Can we request a public hearing once we get all of the documentation submitted by this engineer and our engineer reviews it?
Yeah, I would suggest not opening the public hearing until you have it all,
So you have 65 days to open the public hearing, and then you have 65 days once you open it to conclude the public hearing, and then after that, you have 35 days to decide what you want to do.
No, but the timing of the public hearing, my comfort level would be if the
Everything is
gentleman
submitted
submits
and-
everything,
Yes.
our engineer reviews
Right.
everything.
Right.
right.
And now we know whether or not, and you know, how we want it, whether interest or an alternative. Okay, so we can.
You
is the
can,
question.
you've got, well, it has to be open within 65 days, so next month's meeting will be about 30 days from now. So the public hearing will, in 2 months, planning to open the public hearing in June,
Right.
will be, because it's today is day 0.
Oh, our next meeting is.
Right, is about
May.
it's May, it's about 30 days, and then after that, we're at the outside,
Now-
because you can't extend.
Well,
Yeah.
let's create a hypothetical situation. If their engineer doesn't produce the additional information that we talked about and he's suggesting that be submitted, and then that goes to our engineer, maybe the timing isn't gonna be right for June.
That
public
might just
hearing
mean
can
that
be continued.
if we don't meet the timeline prescribed in statute, the applicant would likely withdraw and resubmit.
Okay.
You
Can
know,
I grant an extension? Is that what you're
yes,
Yeah,
saying?
so-
there's a, right,
I would be willing
right.
to do that.
Okay.
If the
Yes.
public hearing's opens, then you can grant up to 65 additional days of extension.
Okay, all right, I just wanna,
Yeah.
I don't want something to slip through
You can worry about,
misunderstanding
Yeah.
you
laws.
can let Pam and I figure out the
We'll
exact
make sure
days
that-
with all of it.
Well, I
but-
want him to be on board
Yeah.
with
The
knowledge also.
applicant consent to one or more extensions of any time noted above, provided the cumulative extension does not exceed 65.
You're good.
So
You're
you
good.
got like 130 days before you even have to
Okay.
open the public hearing.
There you go.
So, but it sounds like, you know,
We're more than willing to work with you and
Yeah.
grant extensions if needed.
you know, there's a lot to this, that they understand it, they've got a team of, a design team that is working on this, so they fully understand, and I would presume that your client had anticipated a independent review. You know, the town doesn't have their
Yeah,
own
but
engineer.
I'm not surprised you're asking for it. We don't have a problem
Right,
with
so,
that.
you know, the quicker you get it in, the quicker we can get it off. We'll send what you've provided so far just to kind of work up numbers and timelines and, you know, to who we typically use and begin that dialogue.
I'll get that information to you as quickly as possible.
And then all of that, not until then, it sounds like you're inclined to request continuances until we're in a, you know, the commission would not.
I want us all to feel comfortable
Yeah.
about this project, you know, and
Well, we want it done right once,
I do too.
you know, and so does the homeowner and you.
Yep.
So, you know, we'll do our due diligence and you will do yours.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just gonna simply accept this application.
Can I get a question?
Go ahead, please.
So, If I'm, it looks like you're just putting 3 piers out there on each corner?
There's 3 piers there currently,
Right.
and we're gonna be eliminating the middle one and basically reconstructing the corner piers. They're massive pieces of concrete. It's, I don't even think they used a form when they made them. I think they just kinda like piled it up and tooled it off.
So the ones that you're replacing with, there's so much
They're gonna
information.
be a standard foundation design. I think there's a structural plans. I have asked the architect to draw that up. You can see,
Which one are you on here?
yeah, in the
201?
sections here, you can see this will be the 3-foot L shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just at the
Here,
corners?
Yeah.
Just at the 2 lakeside corners, and then on the shore, we're on high ground. There's a small foundation that sits on the high ground at the shore that holds the building. It's basically like the area of these 3 sheds is the foundation that's on the shore.
What one are you on
And
there
it's
now?
not in the lake. It's right next to the lake, but it's not in the lake.
How wide is the house gonna be?
It is, let's see, it's 20 feet.
Okay,
It's
roughly,
basically by 20 by 22.
not the width, just the perpendicular to the water is around 20 feet.
It's 20 feet now, and it'll be 20 feet when we're done.
Yeah, okay.
And there is no, so there's a solid concrete foundation that goes approximately, say, 18 feet out into the lake?
No, it'll just be, if I were to draw on this,
You're gonna have the piers on this one, and the piers.
I'm just gonna draw on this to demonstrate. It's gonna be like this, with a footing.
Maybe a
And
10-inch
then
wall?
another piece here with a footing.
So what is now,
And then this piece here,
And that footing
and
is gonna support
this will have
everything.
a footing as well too.
And those 2 piers are gonna support the water end of the house.
These 2 piers will support the water side of the residence and the decking. There's no piers that comes off the deck. The deck is completely cantilevered.
Cantilevered.
And then we'll have this mass here on shore to hold up the rest of it. And so instead of having 3 piers, we'll just have 2 piers. And currently the piers are about 4 feet, 4 feet, and 4 feet, and this will be 6 and 6. So we'll have the same amount of concrete showing,
so
and we'll
the,
remove the middle one as well and get it out of the way.
are the ones out in the lake, are they just a square one, or are they
It's
a
a
corner?
12-inch thick concrete wall. That's an L shape. Kind of like if you picture it 3 feet and 3 feet,
Yeah.
12 inches wide at each corner.
Sits on top of it.
And then the residents will sit on top of that.
Just
So 12
Just so you're not surprised, from my perspective, I'm not a big fan of conditions of approval. So whatever we'd like to see and whatever our engineer ultimately would like to see, it's gonna be part of what you submit rather than after the fact, and it's, well, we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this and we'll do this, and everybody agrees to it. I'd like to see it in the documentation that's submitted,
That's not a
so
problem.
that it's clean, and the only question that's up in the air would be a bond.
Yeah, no, I'll be happy to do that. Put as many notes on the plans.
No,
as you like.
seriously,
No,
you know, just-
I have no problems with
It's a
that.
big project.
You know,
It is quite the project.
at one point, just to sidetrack for a minute, we had a project in front of us, nowhere much bigger than this. And we conditioned certain things, and all of a sudden, we wound up in court, because they were challenging the conditions. So I'm not a fan of conditions, if it's on the
Yeah, I don't have a
paper.
problem with that.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I'll spell everything out on the plans.
good. All right, any other issues? Pam?
And would you rather, a finding now that it's for significant activity? Because, I mean, if you're gonna wait until a finished plan to make that, you know, it could cost them another month. So I don't know if you'd rather, you know, you know what's involved if they find that it's a significant
It goes to public
activity.
hearing. Yeah.
No,
And
and not only
feasible
that.
and prudent alternatives, you know, and why this is the most. You know, and sometimes that.
You know, in speaking to that, there really isn't an alternative. If the
Well,
foundation is falling down.
It's premature to have that
we need
discussion
to-
now, but, you know, that's what you would do
If-
if it's significant activity. So would you rather, obviously you'd probably rather that they find a public hearing just in the public interest, but I thought I heard.
I'd like to hear what our engineer has to say.
Before you make that finding, but it could cost you another meeting, is what I'm saying, that if they wait.
All the engineers are very busy these days. It
I
would
know that.
surprise me if you can't respond in a timely
If
fashion.
you guys could even
No matter
respond.
what schedule we set. So I'm gonna ask my engineer to jump through some hoops as well too, because he's gotta move things along on our side as well. So, you know, I'll handle it either way you want. If we lose 30 days, we lose 30 days. You know,
No, it's that, because it sounded like you weren't gonna make that finding right now, you were gonna wait. If you think that no matter what comes in, it's gonna be significant activity, you might be doing them a favor by just making that determination this evening. But I don't wanna steer you, it's completely up to the commission whether or not you think you need more information to make that determination.
Well, if we
When you
make that
accept it,
determination,
before you, as you accept it, you should really make it.
would that mean it would have to be next month? The
No,
public hearing?
no. You don't have to schedule the public hearing. It'll be carried on the agenda, and between staff and the team, we'll know when the project's ready to actually open the public hearing.
You know, I think a lot of what they submit and then is reviewed by an independent engineer would determine whether or not it's for public interest in my mind, or if there were no changes or major changes that the town engineer is recommending, then maybe we don't need alternatives and make it easy.
Then you really wanna,
That's what I
I think
said,
you
yeah.
wanna wait to accept it.
Yeah.
The clock starts anyways, like technically, it's definitely, you know, the clock starts in terms of that.
I don't think first of all, no matter how fast we move, this project isn't gonna move that fast either. So let's not, you know, okay. All right, so we're simply accepting it and moving ahead from there.
That's what I'm saying, you wanna weigh in, you're not accepting it yet.
But you don't
So-
have to accept it yet because.
We have to accept it tonight.
But then you should make a finding of whether or not it's a significant activity or not.
So,
We said
don't
that we
know
didn't,
yet.
I asked you that question earlier, and we said we didn't have to do it tonight. That was why I asked the question then. If we have to do it tonight, we'll do it tonight. But if we don't have to do it, I would prefer to wait. You tell me now. Have to is the consummate word, 2 words.
Can you defer acceptance to the next meeting?
Nah,
I mean, because it's, the clock starts, and if they
Why don't you
later
withdraw
find that
and
it's
come
not
back?
complete.
if,
We've got so many other hurdles to go through.
so here's the actual problem. The surface level clever way to do this is to, having met with the commission, immediately withdraw your application and go back to your engineers, because that way you get to avoid the commission accepting. Accepting is not actually something that you have a choice to do. The date of acceptance is the
Today.
next regularly scheduled meeting. You don't actually have a choice to do it. When you vote to accept, that's a lie. You think you have the power to do it, but you don't. State statute tells you that you're doing it, and we get to feel good about voting. But in terms of when an application is accepted, a determination must be made about whether or not it, as proposed, is a significant
so then
impact.
it must be.
You gotta do it, or the applicant has to withdraw. The danger with the applicant withdrawing to go back to their drawing board and saying, okay, let's figure this out from here, and then bring them everything that we want on day one, so they send it to their engineer and we get it in another public hearing timeline, so we maybe don't have to have feasible alternatives, is then we open ourselves up to lawsuit in terms of, well, you actually had a pre-development meeting with them because they came in, you told them what you wanted, they immediately withdrew, it looks like a conflict of interest, therefore it is a conflict of interest. We don't want to do that. This is a big project. If I can weigh on in this, any project that is going to involve multiple cofferdams for multiple stages of your project, which is going to be involving foundations that, by the testimony of the designer, may involve 3.5 feet of digging into the lake bed, that's a significant impact on a wetland. Even if it's done perfectly, you're not going to have any soil problems, but it's a big project. I think it would be remiss to not find this a significant impact.
I agree.
As
It's big.
So then we can make that ruling tonight then.
You can make that ruling tonight, and then within 65 days, well, there'll have to be a public hearing.
Okay.
But the public hearing can be opened and then immediately continued. It doesn't have to start on the very first day. It's just that this is the way the statute's written. So you can immediately just continue it, and there'll be 4 or 5 meetings of just
And if
public
we
hearing.
haven't heard from your engineer yet, I'm more than willing to grant extensions at the
Yeah,
time
right,
necessary.
Right, and so you wouldn't want to schedule the public hearing for the next regular meeting.
So then,
Schedule it for June.
Right.
so we're gonna make a motion to accept, even though we can't accept, you know. we
You know,
give
you
ourselves-
can
we
accept,
feel good
but you
about
must
it.
accept.
We feel good about it.
Finding it to be a significant activity and to schedule a public hearing for June 15th.
Fine, that's the motion. Okay? I'll make that motion,
Yeah.
have Pam read into the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Leanne? All those in favor of accepting as stated? It's unanimous.
Thank you for your time tonight,
Thank
and
you.
I'll get you the information you requested.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the clarification, Mike.
You're welcome. I just went to
Thanks
class.
thanks for putting this down. but that's-
I just spent a week in zoning school learning about all the statutes, so.
You know what I'm surprised at?
Oh,
The guy who built this house built my house. I swear to God.
Well, that-
I
And
deal
then
with-
because it's been moved to public hearing, you don't really want to discuss it now.
That's on Friday.
Right.
All right, next item on the agenda. Oh, we're now to agent determination.
No, we have one gentleman who's been waiting here very
Oh, I'm
patiently.
sorry, the
This is
new application.
This is the item I discussed at the very beginning of the meeting,
He's on the
380.
agenda, he was
Yeah,
on
I
the
got it.
amended agenda.
I got it. That's the last one.
Doing good, how are you?
For the records, you are M.E. Carroll and Sons?
Yeah, I'm Jared Carroll, the owner of Venice Rental Funds.
Okay, so you're not the son.
I am his son.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, sir.
Steve and Beth Valentine contacted me to remove an underground, buried oil tank, very similar to the situation I had last month. I sent some photos to Pam, it's on the side of their house, and they wanna bury a new 500-gallon propane tank to replace their oil tank. We can't put the propane tank, they wanted to put it right back in the same location as the oil tank, but because of the close proximity to the house and the underground utilities, we have to kind of kick it down and over in order to avoid the electric service and maintain the separation distance. We're just gonna, there's very little impact like last time. The propane tank is in a flower bed, we won't disturb anything, it's just mulch, we'll put it back when we're done. That's probably a 2-day job with the inspections. And the oil tank is 1 day, it's about half in a flower bed, we'll tear up maybe a 3-foot by 13-foot section of lawn in the process. That'll be the only real impact. We'll put down the poly mats on the lawn where we have to drive in, pick them up when we're done, we won't tear up any grass or anything. It's very low impact. We'll use a sediment log, so we don't have to tear up a section of the lawn, we'll pick it up when we're done.
If I'm not mistaken, the last application similar to this, we did an agent determination?
Yes.
But what happened? You said something this morning.
Did I?
Earlier today
So,
you didn't get the.
did we go forward with that job? Did I send you the agent
We haven't had the
determination?
weather to do that
Okay,
job yet.
that's what I thought.
We didn't
is-
do it.
Oh, okay.
No, so I haven't issued the agent determination yet, but it was kicked to me for agent determination to give today.
Yeah, no, we're just, the weather has kind of killed our schedule and we haven't got to it yet.
So you didn't start that other job
No.
either,
No, we haven't been there yet.
So,
okay?
Okay.
Do we see any issues behaving the same way as the other one, or do we wanna be
silt
different?
fence and an inspection by me. If it's a job more than 1 day, silt fence is gonna be a standard if there's gonna be any disturbed earth by the end of a day. But if there isn't, then putting it up
There's a
is.
place for a silt fence right there, is there?
I mean, I could go through his lawn, but I just thought a 10-inch sediment log, I would tear
That would
more
also-
up putting the silt fence in.
Yeah, Filtrex stock?
Logs are better. We were just using those ones from Supreme.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's all.
All right, so we wanna make a motion to that effect. Any other concerns?
So you can't put it in the same hole because the propane has to be further away from a electrical service.
no, from the house, and then the electric service is right where, we would be far enough away, we'll be in the middle of the electric service, so we can't put it, the electric service is right in that strip of grass, if you will, in the middle. So
Yeah.
we can't get it in there, because then he has to walk
and everything, so we're just gonna kick it down and over. It seemed like the most logical place. Because if we slide it down in the grade, it's like it's probably a 12 or 15% grade. We would have to turn the tank and we still wouldn't be far enough away from the house because the end of the tank has to be level and it'll stick out on the end. So we're gonna kind of turn it and fit it into the topo on the side of that slope, if you will.
So you gotta pull some of the walkway out there?
No, we can sneak around the walk. We're just gonna come off the end with a mini excavator on the mats. The walk will remain, grass will remain.
Well, I think our precedence is we give it to the agent.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, too bad we didn't get a ruling on how we performed the last time. That would have been, but.
I don't distrust M.E.
Okay.
Carroll and Sons.
Neither
so.
am I. I'm just saying, I would have felt more comfortable had you said he did everything copacetic and we were good with it, so.
Well,
All right, we're good then.
I think we approved with the same conditions, right? Agent approval.
And we're gonna do that one first, obviously, and,
Yep.
you'll see how that goes. There shouldn't be any issues.
All right, Jeff, you wanna make a motion?
Okay.
There you go,
Make
thank
a
you.
motion to accept IWWC 2209 and defer to an agent approval.
Second? Leanne? All those in favor, referring to the agent for determination? Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time.
Let him know when you're ready.
Yep, I will. We're probably gonna do the other one in like 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. Send me an email and I'll get the approval out to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You as well.
Okay, Michael,
I'll go quick because
Go quick.
I'll go quick because people are tired.
They're fading.
And I haven't eaten dinner. So let's do this. 2:15. Nothing happens. It's still there. North Main Street, things are worse. Looks like he might be putting in electric service despite the fact that he doesn't have a permit. I have new pictures. I'm going to go inspect the site with the police this coming Monday. Because that's what we're up to. 308.
Goodness.
It just keeps getting weirder. He's got like 6 pylons that look like they're like fresh downed trees that he stripped the bark off. They've got that like weird cherry color that you get from like fresh wood that you've taken bark off. I was a Boy Scout. I did that a lot because that's what we did. Anyway, that's a mess, and it's still a mess, and it's still in court. The most fun thing about that recently has been trying to help the property owner apply for the permits that he needs, but he doesn't seem to really want to do that.
You did have a letter that was on your desk this morning.
I
that
did.
He has contracted a surveyor.
He has contracted a surveyor. Peter Keefe has been retained to do the survey. I called Peter Keefe and I confirmed that because I was a little bit in disbelief. Yes, he has agreed to do it. He has the retainer down just for the research at the time, but it is a step in the right direction, but things continue to be weird with that one. 308 East Wakefield, Mr. Sliney is still in discussions with Lennard Engineering to determine whether there's anything that can be done. After receiving the initial quote on the price, it may look like he's just going to be ripping everything out.
For the engineer?
For the engineering, because his slot is so small, and so much of it is covered with impervious surface coverage, that in order to get it down below 20%, it's going to require, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
And there really isn't anything that can be done. It's not grandfatherable, and it's a pain from an architectural standpoint because it's a beautiful patio, but there's...
What if we put the same patio back pervious?
Well,
Then
the
he's
problem
not
with
changing
that, of
anything
course,
there.
is that it's going to be very expensive to put in the pervious pavers and have the engineer design the pervious paver patio because it's a low-lying lot, and when you put in pervious pavers, the way water flows changes. So, apparently, Dave Batista quoted him a price, and he isn't sure he can pay it. So that's where we are on that. I'm not sure if it's all going to be ripped out, but I'm continuing to follow up with him pretty regularly. 713 East Wakefield. I have confirmation that they have formally retained Peter Keefe and put down the retainer to get the survey done.
Hallelujah.
Finally. So that's...
Did you give him a citation?
It was like 3 days before I was gonna send it. Peter Keefe called because at the last meeting, Friday, I had it drafted up, and then on Monday I'm like, all right, might as well send it to Pam, but I have a call from Peter Keefe come in, so I hadn't sent it to them, and I'm not.
That's great.
I'm not going to unless he gets it done and then they just don't apply. If he gets it done and then they don't apply, then I'm just gonna start citing them every day.
Keeping our house for a couple months.
The canals, the West Wakefield Boulevard. I know for a fact that that one's done because Peter Keefe finished it and told me it's done and gave it to them. And I don't know why we don't have an application this month, but if we don't have one in May, I'm going to send them a citation. 225 West Wakefield, we talked about that one. I've heard nothing. They came in and got the application and then left saying nothing to me. I imagine they're upset with me. 182 Shore Drive, I've heard nothing.
225 West Wakefield.
That is the Pratt House, the one that we approved the plan to make, but then they put in those stones.
rock on it.
Yeah, they put in those stones in the swale without any sort of approval. It's not on the plans, so I asked them to get a modification. And then 182 Shore Drive, the drainage ditch is still there, and I haven't heard from the owner, so.
How do we end that
heard from
last
the
time?
town?
He's gotta put in an application
What have
and
we heard
just
from the
take the
town
stone and put grass on top of it.
Okay, that's all they have to do.
Nothing, yeah.
The town would have well fallen down and stuff.
Oh, did I never tell you about that? No, the Jim Rollins did the work on 242 Perch Rock Trail. He did that and replaced it, and then the owner of 242 Perch Rock Trail said, wait, you replaced it? I wasn't ready for you to replace it. He didn't believe that we actually did it. And now he's...
Chinook?
Yes, and then...
His application though.
No, he withdrew his
Oh, he withdrew
application
for
for the thing over the front of his house.
The roof, yeah.
He has the approval for the lake wall. He just isn't doing it right now because it's the water level's back up. But the damage, any damage that the pipe may have caused, the pipe is fixed. So that one's good. I have no other determinations. I have no other communications or bills.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't talk to Rollins
I know
today.
that. I knew you were gonna say
just
that.
didn't do it.
I knew that.
I have no excuse. I just didn't do
Don't
it.
wanna talk to him anymore after he got beat
No,
up here.
I used the ball
Jackie?
2 months ago.
All right, my sense is that I think everybody knows what's going on, we see what's going on.
There is one thing that's going on that I feel I should tell you about, which is regards to the solar farm. So it's never come before you because it's a siting council thing. They get to circumvent local authority whenever you're putting in one of those big solar farms. The solar farm up on Platte Hill, there has been a lot of erosion into some of the, over the winter, there was a lot of erosion into the 2 wetland crossings that they had to go over in order to put in the solar farm. And I got them to clean those out, but there are some other issues that I have that are solidly out of my jurisdiction and that they're deep stormwater things with their deep stormwater permit, but I've referred it to deep stormwater. There may be something coming. I may have to send them a letter to cease and desist the solar farm, depending upon if issues don't get fixed. And there's some big issues about soil into wetlands. So hopefully not gonna be a thing, but forewarning based on some of the things I noticed today.
Any issues, anything else? All right, just to close, I see a lot of construction trucks around the lake. You're out there, so, you know, one of the disadvantages that I have, I'll limit it to myself, is that if there's an application that was approved 3-4 years ago, and they're starting the work now, it's like, you don't know whether it's new work, they're in violation, so,
In regards to some of that, if you'd like me to talk to some of the things that have popped up.
no, just in general, just a general statement. So, if you could sort of keep us abreast on those kind of things with your staff notes.
I will do so.
It'll make it a lot easier, and,
So do you feel everything that's getting done on the lake is permitted?
So right now, with what I'm driving around and I've noticed, there's a car parking issue that's not allowed, and we've got a letter that's going out to them. There's a new dock that was, well, it's a complete replacement of an existing dock that happened. And it seems to be in the same shape, but they didn't just resurface, they also took out the substructure, and it looks like there's a new substructure in. That becomes difficult because we can't prove it's exactly where it was, so we have to send them a letter. There is a driveway rebuild and a deck rebuild. They have a permit for the deck. The driveway resurfacing, they got their driveway permit, and it's more than 100 feet from the water, so it wouldn't come before this body. With regards to other things, there is some continuing activity going on. I know that down in the 800s, Matt Clausen is building a house there. That has been going on for a long time. That's continuing. I'm thinking about other things on West Wakefield as we come around the lake. I don't think there's a lot in West Wakefield right now, but there have been a bunch of things in the 100s to 300s East Wakefield lately. But they're either violations which are going to be coming out for May and just couldn't get out for April, or are far enough from the wetlands that it's not going to be a problem right now.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction going on.
No, there's been a lot of things that are happening.
You know, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of new homeowners on the lake.
Right.
So they're moving ahead and, you know, see where we are.
Was that properly permitted, that the place you went to the other day? On Friday or Saturday, whatever day it was?
I think he's referring
Yeah.
to one of them.
The one on Carey Point?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a permit for that one. I'm going by again to verify their silt fence. It was up, the one area need to be towed in. I'm gonna verify that before the end of the week, but they do have a permit.
That also.
Yep, yep, I got a
And they
call.
were,
Or
they
weekend-
were, they
or
were
weekend
conven-
visit.
cordial about it, and no issue. And normally I wouldn't even venture to visit a site and tell somebody that their silt fence is down. But it was Good Friday and staff was not working, so I just felt compelled, because of the call, just to respond on behalf of the commission that we are concerned about it. And I did, and we took a ride there, and, you know, the builder that was working on the structure of the house had nothing to do with the land part of it, but he reached out to the overall contractor who was supposed to come by in an hour and fix it. I didn't go back. So, if you visit that.
Yeah, it looked good on Monday when it went up. There's one area by the stairs that has to get
Kept
fixed.
his word, and that was it. All right, we all ready to adjourn?
This was a good meeting.
You like it?
I thought we got some good stuff accomplished, and, yeah,
Maybe fewer people even better.
maybe.
All right, good night, everybody.
Hey, Gary, that was good catching that pipe being like that. That was a good catch in that pipe being like that. When I first saw it, when you presented it,